grind of a job. Dylan, have I mentioned how much I hate my life and how I wish I could sometimes go play in traffic?
Not in those exact words, but yeah.
Well, on that note, hello everyone, I am Zazubaar, and welcome to this week's episode of the Demons from Outer Space. Joining me as always, I have my very one of best friends in the entire world, Dylan McCandless, aka Super DM64.
Okay, one of us. See how it is.
Yeah, hell, well, I had to back out at the last minute, because I'm a pussy, so I don't say anything definitive. Everything's got to be vague,
I see.
left
I see.
open to interpretation.
Fuck,
I just like that's kind of the game I like to play.
fucking pain in the ass.
Uh,
Yeah, hello everybody.
Piece of shit. So Dylan, you picked the topic for this week, which has been happening for the past like 3 episodes in a row. But
Again. Wait, three? What did we talk about the episode before last? What was?
Dragon Ball Super Resurrection F. That was also your idea at the last. I mean, it was kind of a
Well, that was sort of
combination.
a thing that we had been planning on doing forever, and I was just like, Bill, fucking do it already. And we're
Well, I
like,
don't.
all right.
He yelled at me through text messages, and I was just like, I'm impressed that he was able to make this happen. So I'm gonna do it out of respect.
The fact that I was
So
able to raise my voice in text form really like got to you somehow, and
he didn't even use caps. That's what was so impressive. I just knew that he yelled at me, and I was just like, I have to respect a man that can yell at me through text without me even reading it in the text. But Dylan, what is this third, fourth, fifth, 80th? No, it's 83rd because it's the 83rd episode. Dylan, happy 83rd anniversary.
is it really the 83rd episode? Wow.
It is the 83rd episode. If that means anything to you whatsoever.
It
Uh,
means it means that the next one's gonna be the 84th, kids.
it will indeed. Well, hang on. No. Yeah, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I
That
don't
is
know.
that is
I'm having second thoughts though. I think the last one might have been 83. No, I think it was 82. I think the way I remember is the way I remember the episode title, the episode numbers is by remembering when I made the title card or the thumbnail rather, because that's the only time I ever write it down outside of the title. So
well, I'm
it's
just gonna fact check this shit real quick. I'm just gonna
we
find
do
out.
this so often now. Like every fucking week, we're always like, "What episode is this?"
I'm just gonna find out once and for all.
Just so we know.
And all you have to do, but all you have to
Let's get
do,
some hardcore physical evidence. I know I could have just gone on YouTube and
all
found
you
out in two
have to
seconds.
do going forward is just every week remember what last week's was, and then you can forget that afterwards as long as you don't have to keep a running tally in your head. All you have to do is remember what the last
That's
one
what
was.
I've been doing this entire time, and that's why it's fallen apart.
Yeah, I mean that worked fine when we were on episode fucking 18, which by the way was the Gods of Sea, and the only reason I know that is because recently going back and anyway,
That was only episode 18?
yeah, I found that out because I rewatched that video that I posted to Facebook about designing the thing.
Yeah.
And I mentioned,
You mean Godzilla?
yeah, and I mentioned
Designing the thing?
the episode number in that episode or in that video, and I was like, shit, that was only 18, Jesus. But yes,
That's what I'm thinking. Like, we 18 weeks into that podcast, we were like, Dylan, do you want to send Godzilla through time and space?
I was like, yeah, motherfucker.
Yeah. That's the entire podcast is, Dylan, do you want to send Godzilla into another dimension? You were like, yeah, motherfucker!
So yes, last episode, Black Goku spoils X-Men Apocalypse was episode number 82.
Yes, I remembered it, Dylan. Are you proud of me?
Slightly.
Cool, I'm glad. That's all I need. I just need a little bit of slight proudness. But, Dylan, me being slightly proud of you for coming up with a really fucking ballin' fucking topic this week, by the way. Let me just say before we get into it.
Ballin'.
What is that ballin' fucking topic?
I've never been described with the word balling before in my life. That's
Well, now you have been. So now you're even slightly more proud.
can't wait to text my mom.
Tex, you're such a fucking millennial.
Anyway,
Can't go into the other room and be like, guess what my friend called me, Ma?
this is interesting because this is sort of both an entertainment and sciencey topic rolled into one.
That's why we decided it would be a good idea.
In that it is a show that I'm pretty sure aired on the Sci-Fi Network.
They bring up at the end, like towards the end of every episode, you hear them go, you can find all this information on
Yeah.
sci-fi.com.
So,
And in my head, I always go, wait, is that sci-fi or sci-fi?
well, this was
Because
only
there's a fucking difference.
this was only 3 years ago, so yes, it's sci-fi actually.
It's sci-fi. Yeah, I figured that. Because I could tell that it was recent-ish. Because there's a reference to finding I guess this is kind of a well. Just say the topic. I'll bring this up in a minute.
Okay, so me and Bill, me and Bill are both
Bill and I, Dylan. No, I'm sorry, I'm fucking with you.
fuck English. Paragraph and sentences and shit. We
Syntax, as they say.
we're both familiar with a certain comedian named Joe Rogan, and I found out a few weeks back that in 2013 he had a show, a very short-lived show. It's only one season, 6 episodes, kind of a short, like test this out type season length. He had a show on the Sci-Fi network called Joe Rogan Questions Everything, and it's basically, if you've ever seen one of these paranormal file shows on Sci-Fi Network, that's pretty much exactly what it is. The only difference is the thing that elevates it above those is that it has the infinite charm of Joe Rogan to
Right.
sort of guide it along. I don't really
Exactly.
know how they would have ever gotten a second season, to be honest, because he kind of covered all six of like the big topics in this season. But it's a nice.
Oh no, he could do this forever. There's so much bullshit out there,
It's true.
Dylan.
He could go.
Because it's not just the supernatural. I mean, he could go to like just legit conspiracy. He could do who shot
Well, he did
JFK.
do legit conspiracy in episode 2, but yeah, it's a nice, but it's a nice little 6 episode run. It's a nice little smorgasbord of topics. You get a little bit of paranormal, you get a little bit of sort of futurism, you get a little bit of conspiracy theory. It's a whole lot of him looking at questions about the world, and he's a noted skeptic, and he brings that sensibility to it, and it's a pretty good show. I remember, well, the very first episode, and the reason that I knew Bill would like this show, and the reason that I sort of got the idea that maybe we should talk about it on the show, is that the first episode is about one of your favorite topics, Bill. What is the first episode about?
It is about syntax and the use of the English language. No, it's about Bigfoot.
I can
So
just see Joe Rogan doing a show about syntax and the use of the English language.
he probably would. He probably has done a podcast about it because for those of you, this is another. But we'll get to the first episode in a second. But for those of you who may not be familiar with Joe Rogan, he's mostly well known now for having his own podcast called the Joe Rogan Experience. He's a fellow podcaster,
Yes.
and that is also an element of the
Now,
show
my
because
first exposure to Joe Rogan was watching Fear Factor back in the day. Used to watch that shit.
he was the host of that, wasn't
He
he?
was the host of Fear Factor. I used to watch that shit.
God, that's crazy. I see. I don't even remember him being that. Like I remember, I visualizing that now. That makes sense. But I didn't know who he was when I watched Fear
Oh
Factor as a
man,
kid.
I fucking loved Fear Factor. I used to watch that shit religiously. I didn't find out about all the other shit he does until years later. He's a
Yeah.
martial artist. He was a UFC fighter, and he's a stand-up comedian, and now podcaster, and
Right.
short-lived TV host of Joe Rogan Questions Everything. Uh,
He's also an actor as well. He had a big role in what's that show called? Newsroom.
oh
It
really?
was on Showtime. Yeah, it's on one of the movie network channels. Like your HBO or whatever. And he was pretty. He was given some acclaim for that. So he's covered a lot of bases, and he's kind of he's a really interesting guy. My first exposure to
He's
him
really
primary
he's really just you can just listen to the guy talk about anything.
what I love about him is that he's an incredibly smart guy, and you can tell by looking at him that he has fought hard to become as smart as he is about, and as knowledgeable. I guess is a better way to describe it. Knowledgeable about the things that he knows about. He's clearly done a lot of hard work, a lot of self improvement on
And you can
himself
tell that he was
to be the really smart, put together, kind of charming guy that he
you
is. He really earns his personality, which I'm sure we'll talk
you
about.
can tell that while very intelligent, he wasn't born with like innate intelligence because he'll always be the first to say like I'm a dumb fuck. I might not know what the fuck I'm talking about, but
Well,
here's
that was yeah.
but here's my take, and I think I don't think he gives himself enough credit honestly because he's
Oh no, he's very. I was just listening to a podcast of his, not one of his podcasts, but one he was on before we started recording this. And God, the guy's just rattling off medical terms that go way over my head. He's rattling off and he was talking a lot about hallucinogenic drugs,
yeah,
and
he's
he was
big
just
in
rattling off their medical and their scientific names just off the top of his head.
he's big into all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Not just hallucinogenic drugs, but also
No.
but
Yeah.
also like dietary like supplements and shit because he's all into to all of that shit like
Oh yeah, he's all in that very same podcast he was talking about. for the year of 2014, kind of he did a Mark Zuckerberg thing where he was like, I'm only going to eat meat that I kill. This that podcast was recorded a while ago, but what I was going to say was I was mainly introduced to him through Kevin Smith, who's friends with Joe Rogan, and they did a podcast together that blew my mind when I first listened to it 2 years ago. It's a two-part episode of Smodcast called Rogan's Run. Get it?
No, I see
It's both
nothing.
it's both an alliteration and a play on words. It's great. It's
And a
hilarious.
reference.
And a film and a illusion if we're gonna use our proper syntax, Dylan.
Ah,
Uh,
of course, yeah.
so I was introduced to Joe Rogan through that. I listened to a few of his own podcasts outside of that, and I find the guy very funny, and everything we've said, he's incredibly intelligent, he's incredibly charming, and just really, he's a guy you want to listen to. You said it the best.
He's
So
got a
great.
for anyone who maybe hasn't heard any of his stand up and is interested in getting into it, he has one that at least last time I checked was on Netflix. I don't know if it's still up there or not. That's pretty good. Go see if you go type in Joe Rogan on Netflix, see what pops up, and see if there's still a stand up special from him up there. There was one at a recent point, and it's and just listen to the guy talk about like his take on the world. It's fascinating.
Exactly, and that's why he's such a good choice to do this kind of show, because you instantly want to listen to him. But more than that, he's the kind of guy who is so interested in everything that he'll listen to anyone. So, what I mean by that being a really good for a show like this is, well, because you're going off and looking into all this paranormal crap and digging into, these decades upon decades of, I'm going to use the word dogma. A lot of people will probably not describe it that way, but dogma of mythology and folklore and urban legends and all
I
that.
don't know.
And he's digging deep into that, and he's also a huge fan of all that shit. Almost every episode, he goes off about like, God, I want this to be real so badly. I'm fighting for this to be real, and you can kind of see that as he goes along each
Well,
topic.
it
So,
depends on the topic. I mean, when we get into episode 6,
oh no, episodes. Well, it depends on the part. Like the ending, no, he was not about that. But like earlier, he was about the idea of. I mean, I guess we'll get to
I
episode
always got
six.
the feeling that that was the one that he was perhaps the most skeptical of going in.
Oh, I mean, that's the one I was the most
Oh,
skeptical.
me too.
I hate that. I have a personal hatred of that kind of bullshit.
I mean, which
So,
by the way, I actually did get to rewatch that episode because
oh, okay,
I had
cool,
some
yeah,
unexpected free time this evening. So
that's always the best.
because recently there's been a bad run of us reviewing things that I haven't seen in a while and having to like constantly be like, Bill, what the fuck happened again?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this time I went out of my way to, and it helps that it's only 6 episodes. I went out of my way to rewatch the series in question. Uh,
right, right. I watched it most of it yesterday, and then I watched a little bit today because I meant to finish it all yesterday because I wouldn't have had time today because I had to go to work from 11 in the morning until like an hour ago.
oh wow.
So I was like, I don't have any time to watch it at all. But I didn't finish it last night, so I was like, fuck, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, I'm gonna be running my store tomorrow. I can just sit down and watch it. Nobody's gonna be watching me. So that's what I did. I opened up and I finished what I had to watch, and then I did my work. So I got it all done and I watched it all. It was watching the fifth episode and the sixth episode was it's weird watching a show like that in that kind of environment because it's
In
like
an ice cream shop.
yeah, no, just public at all. Because I've not only have I never done that, but it's not the kind of thing I even necessarily like. Being into all this stuff, paranormal and conspiracy stuff. Like you get made fun of it when you're younger if you bring it up like at school and stuff. And depending on the crowd, of course.
I would argue
If
that
you're hanging out with cool people, I mean they'll be like, yeah, whatever,
I
that's
would
fine.
argue that it's even weirder like when you get older
Oh, definitely,
because
yeah.
a person can very easily assume that you're one of like the crazy people who believes in all this shit, and you're like, no, I'm
Exa-
just vaguely interested in the
exactly.
topics.
And that's another thing that I liked about this show and Joe Rogan being the guy who's the host of it is that so good at distinguishing between those kinds of people, particularly in the Bigfoot episode. So Dylan, let's dive into
Yes.
that, shall we?
One more thing about Joe Rogan and his abilities at hosting this show. I love how honest he is with the people. If they're showing something that he is,
Oh yeah, no, he's not one of those guys where it's like he cuts away to an interview later and he's like, "This is bullshit."
no,
He does that a little
says
bit,
that
but he always says
that's
it
it.
to them in person
He
too.
says
Yeah.
it straight up to their face. He's constantly saying, "My bullshit meter's going off the charts on this one. This is fucking stupid." Like,
I loved the outtake from the 5th episode where he was like, "It's going off the charts. Pieces are flying. My brain's going crazy."
yeah,
You know, it's funny. He's such a good improv. Another thing about him being a good choice for something like this, he's an amazing improv
oh yeah,
guy. Like he is
he definitely brings his comedy.
incredible.
He definitely brings his comedy chops to everything else that he does as well. He can really come up with shit on the fly.
Yeah. So let me also just say this to preface the whole thing before we get into the Bigfoot episode. I know we were just about to finally get into it,
Yeah,
but I
but
want
we had to suck Joe Rogan's dick a little bit more before we.
I still want to suck his dick a little bit and kind of crap on a bunch of stuff I used to love a lot and still do like. Paranormal documentaries and paranormal show, you know, those kind of in search of, we're going off trying to find out the truth behind all this crap kind of shows.
Yeah,
I've seen almost all of them. A lot of them are complete garbage.
they
You
will
know,
they will never find Bigfoot.
no, certainly not. And finding Bigfoot, in my opinion, was probably the thing that this show came out of. I mean,
Honestly, if they
it's directly mentioned in the first episode. They don't mention the name, but they clearly they make a reference to it with the calls thing.
honestly
And
if they did find Bigfoot, it would be in their best interest to hide that shit so that they can keep making the show.
yeah, because that's the thing about that show. I always thought that name was dumb because not only would they have to end it if they found him, but guess what else, Dylan? They can't stop doing the show unless they find him. Because the show's called Finding Bigfoot. It's not like the
Yeah,
quest to find Bigfoot. It's called Finding Bigfoot. That is a declarative
if they
statement to
stop
get back
short
to
of finding
syntax.
Bigfoot, that's false advertising, my friend.
Now, I don't know if that show's still on. If it is, I'm astounded because that would be 5 years that it's been on the air,
And
and
still,
that's
they have not found Bigfoot because I'm pretty sure if they had, I would have heard about it. Uh,
I'm sure that you would see an article about it. So, point being though, what makes this better than a show like that though? Aside from the whole tint of, oh, it's Joe Rogan and he's funny, and
well,
I also no,
I
I
think
also
what
no no
makes
I
it
also
better is that the people that you have on those shows are pretty much on those type of shows. And I've never actually watched an episode of Finding Bigfoot, so I don't know if this is necessarily true in that case. But when you watch like Ghost Hunters or shit like that, the people that you get on those shows, generally speaking, are usually have already made up their mind that this shit's real, and they will go to any length to justify their findings or whatever.
well no
Whereas
I'm fine.
with Joe Rogan, he's going in from a skeptical bent, and you know, he'll say like, I love this subject and I would love for it to be real, but at the same time, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.
Oh no, honest is honest, and that's what I really respect about him. But to say something for Finding Bigfoot, that show is, I will say this: that show is a lot better than a lot of the other paranormal garbage that not only it produced, but also a lot of stuff that came before it. Like, I think it's a better show than Monster Quest. It's not as well made as Monster Quest was, because Monster Quest always had the benefit of like telling a really strong narrative. Like those documentaries, while filled with complete horseshit a lot of the time. They are immensely entertaining and well edited and well made like narratives, but those I can't even watch a lot of Monster Quest anymore because so much of it was filled with crap. And so's Finding Bigfoot. But Finding Bigfoot at the very least had from the get-go the mindset of, we want this to be taken seriously, so we have to have a skeptic on the show.
Yeah.
We can't have all these lunatics believing in Bigfoot running around in the woods. We have to have somebody out there who's like, nah.
And on other shows,
And
even when they do bring along a skeptic, it's always the show will be edited in such a way or whatever to make everything they're saying like seem like they're just being a downer, you know, like
well, no, that's the thing. That's the way that show was edited. Was you'd cut between her and the leader of the group, who was obviously a diehard Bigfoot believer, and he would always get the last say and say something snide about her comments, and it's like, well, no, she was right. You're an idiot. Well, not always, but I'm just saying that was kind of the running trend. I mean, Adam and I used to review that show, so
yeah.
you can go back to those videos for more fresh thoughts on that show. But just remembering it from the 2 seasons that I watched when it was on, I mean, that was my memory of it. Anyway, though, so
And I think
what makes
and I
this
think
better is
what
not just the skeptic
I
thing,
think
though.
sci-fi Well, I don't know if the concept for this show came from some executive at Sci-Fi or if like Joe Rogan went to them and was like, "Hey, I want to do a show like this."
No, I think it probably was his idea, and because otherwise it wouldn't have been a 6 order
But
run, a 6 episode order. It would have been a 22 episode order, and
whoever's idea it was, that's why I think it's genius to have, a comedian like Joe Rogan being the guy to host it because he can sort of make fun of all that shit at the same time that he's investigating it, and he does that so well.
he does an amazing job of flipping between. And again, this is why I think it's better than a lot of the other shows
But at the same
that
time, even when everything he's seen points in the direction of it being Bigfoot, he still leaves it at the end with an open question. He's not looking to prove or disprove anything, really.
he doesn't come down concretely on. I don't think any of the things that he talks about.
No.
But you know what though? He's also very honest about which ones he puts more personal stake in.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I mean, Dylan, I don't know why we're like hiding what each episode is about. The weather one,
Right.
he was like from the very get go, like something's up, and I want to
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what's up.
And that episode, like, legitimately freaked me out a little bit.
Oh,
Um,
did it really? See, that's I've seen so many
no,
documentaries about HARP before.
yeah,
That one was like
not the harp thing, and not the chemtrail thing, because I knew about both of those.
I never heard of Chem Trails. That was a new one on
You
me.
never heard
That
of
was
chemtrail?
fucking weird. Never.
I've heard of all that shit before. The thing that got me was I had never heard of the Windsor hum, and that is some legitimately freaky shit. Like,
That is some freaky business, man. I had remembered hearing something about that years ago, but not knowing it was connected to like, weather or in theory, allegedly connected
yeah,
to all these weather experiments. I always
perfectly
just thought that
fair.
was a weird thing.
To be perfectly fair, it was never proven that the Windsor hum is in any way connected to HARP or chemtrails or any of the other shit that's
Or Zurg Island or whatever that thing was
Zug
called.
Island. It's not really been concretely proven or even like strongly supported that any of those things are connected to that phenomenon. It's just,
Right.
yeah, it's just the theory that's put forth by many and is explored by Rogan in the episode. It could be caused by something totally different. It could just be that for some reason that area has more skyquakes than usual, kind of like how the aurora borealis is a thing in only a certain part of the world. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, man? It's impossible to say concretely until somebody finally does something about it. But that the Windsor Hum in particular was interesting because of all the things that he covered. That was like the one thing that they were like the government knows that this is going on and acknowledges it and is trying to do something about it. And that was a bit disconcerting as well because you're like, well, if it does turn out to be connected to all this, weather shit, like that's so fucked that they took so long to figure it
Because
out.
when you watch an episode like the Alien episode, and you have a guy saying, "Well, there was a spaceship that flew over my pickup, and then it flew in front of my pickup." That guy used the word pickup like 10 times. It was insane. Um,
That guy who they meet up with in near Skinwalker Ranch.
yeah, the guy who just keeps talking about it was a big rectangular
Yeah, no, that guy was
flew over my
hilarious.
pickup.
He looked like one of my uncles. It was great.
So you saw it where? It was over my pickup. Oh, so it flew over your pick. Yeah, it flew over my pickup. And I was like,
So it flew over your truck. No, it flew over my pickup.
and I'm like, I get it. It was your fucking pickup.
The truck has an open back. We get it, man.
Shut up, man. Uh,
You're very proud. Go text your mom about it.
very proud of his pickup. He anyway, when you're talking to a guy like that, it's very easy, and that's the problem with any show that's about like those alien stories. It's very easy to just sit there and be like, this guy could be making all of this shit up. It's all talking out of his ass. I can't buy into a word of it really. But when it comes to something like the Windsor Hum, it is apparent that something is actually happening.
Well,
Um,
that too as well. And Dylan, this is we can get into this a little bit. There's a see, I'm somebody who was very picky as a kid about the paranormal stuff I was into. Like, I was not really into UFOs as a kid. And I'll tell you why. Because it's the same reason in this show that Joe Rogan doesn't even like. It's the same reason why Joe Rogan says what he says about UFOs. There is practically zero physical evidence that aliens have visited this planet that you can produce and reproduce in a laboratory. There's like weird shit that has been found and weird shit that can be recreated in a laboratory. I've seen it done on shows and stuff, so who knows if it's actually real. But there's no there's no good photos of aliens and all the photos of UFOs. God, they are garbage, right?
It's all
Have you ever
summed
seen
up.
that
It's
video?
all summed up in that scene where he's talking to that guy, and every sentence out of the guy's mouth is, "So I knew this guy, and he says that he worked over here, and he saw." And Joe Rogan at one point is just like, "Do you have any evidence, or are you just gonna keep telling me
Oh yeah,
stories?"
that's Bill Byrne. Bill Byrne is a huge guy in the UFO field. He was the leader of a show that I watched as a kid called UFO Hunters, and
Oh, I've heard
I
of that.
used to
Okay, so
yeah, I used to watch that show all the time. So I'm very familiar with Bill Byrne, and I feel the same way about him as Joe Rogan does. Great guy, fascinating to listen to. But you know what he is? He's a guy telling campfire stories, Dylan.
yeah,
He has zero physical evidence of anything that he talks about, and when Joe puts him on the spot, he can't say shit because he's right. He's going into all this stuff, and that's what all these fucking people try to do, and you can see it so clearly in a context like this because they sit there and they put on a show, and Joe Rogan ain't having any of it. He's putting on a show too, but he's putting on a different show.
yeah.
He's putting on a self-analytical show about this kind of stuff and about the kind of people who purvey these myths. And it's very interesting and almost more interesting in some cases than the myths themselves, how people purvey these things, how people keep these things going, and what people will do to keep these things
The
going.
whole thing,
And
the whole thing that I think keeps that idea, the UFO idea, so popular despite the lack of evidence. And this is something that Joe says straight up to one of the guys in the episode. It's also something that he's talked about in his stand-up before. It is a super sexy idea. And that's why people love it and people want it to be true. But other than that, I mean,
But like the whole here's Dylan, this is another really big thing. It's not lack of physical evidence just in and of itself, but there's also because like that's not enough for a kid. If there's zero physical evidence, but the idea is fucking interesting, then I mean the Loch Ness monster I was hugely into as a kid, and there is almost zero physical evidence of
yeah,
that
I know.
ever being a
Which
thing.
is sad. Which is
Uh,
sad because I fucking love Nessie.
yeah, Nessie's great, but you know what the difference is between that and UFOs though? When people describe a sighting of a Nessie, it's like, oh, by the way, he could have done Loch Ness Monster because we were talking before about how
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
how
true, true, true.
would he have done a season two? He could have done sea monsters in
He
general.
could have done. He only did one cryptid episode this entire time. He could have done more.
Well, some people rope UFOs in with Bigfoot in terms of being cryptids, but it's not really. It's a mix of different stuff. But anyway, it's all the paranormal.
But I think
So
he wanted to give 6 very different episodes about vastly different topics. So I think
which is I think he did to show that this show has legs, and I'm really sad that that sci-fi thought that it didn't because it definitely
I
did.
guess maybe there was a problem of promotion or something. Maybe it's because it was only on for such a short time. But I'm assuming it just didn't get the views necessary to facilitate a second season being made, which is sad because I really fucking loved the show. Now that I've
Do you think
discovered it after all these years, I didn't even know it was a
I
thing back in the day.
it's so good. I don't even know if I've said that yet. This is as I know. I think I said it at the beginning. I think that's when I used the term ballin'.
Yes,
This
yes,
is a
well,
ballin' show. This is fucking great. And one other thing I want to say. This is just to get back to the alien versus like your Bigfoots and your Nessie type of thing. There's a physical fucking encounter that happens in a Nessie and a Bigfoot story. There is a creature that is supposedly living on this planet that I can go to these places and potentially encounter.
yeah, a guy telling a Bigfoot
With
story is like, then he made this noise and it made all the
yeah, like
hairs on
it's
the back of my
so
neck
tactile.
stand up, and that's his story. Whereas the alien story is, well, I seen a shape fly over my pickup, and then it flew off to the side of my pickup.
Everything exists. There's so much like metaphysical fucking mental bullshit that goes on in a UFO sighting and in the alien subculture of your paranormal, of your paranormal subculture
And then it picked up my
that I
pickup.
just I lose my interest in it. Like I have no patience for these people who are like I had an experience with an alien. It's like, well, did you fucking see an alien? It's like, well, not really. I sort of just felt that it was there.
I
And
was
it's like, well, I don't give a fuck about your dumb story then because everything that you just said I've experienced while fucking drunk off my ass. So you know what? I'm not gonna. It's just like I know that sounds really aggressive and everything. If you believe in UFOs and you believe in these
Hey man, I don't know what
these
you're.
these metaphysical planes that we're talking about or whatever, but that stuff does not interest me because it can all be made up in the
It
head
could
so
it could
easily.
all
And to hear
very
people
well,
talk about it,
and again, it could all very well be true. I'm just saying evidence wise.
yeah.
Uh,
But you know what, Dylan? Even if it is true, it's like it's so easily misconstrued by these people's own internal logic. and it just becomes like a fad at that point. It becomes fashion.
Yeah.
You know, it becomes like, well, I like to live in this culture around like fucking like pouring different color waters in bottles and then seeing what that tells me about this alien society that lives millions of light years away. And I'm just like, that's fine, but none of it makes any sense to me as an outsider, so that's why it's not scientifically viable and why I don't care.
I love in
Because,
the
because here's the thing, when you tell somebody a Bigfoot story, like you said before, instantly you know what's up. When you go, I saw a giant fucking hairy man in the woods, it's so fucking simple and so easy to go to somebody and be like, you see why why I think Bigfoot's real now. But when you're like, I sneezed out a weird metallic thing,
yeah,
and you jump to I was abducted by aliens. I'm just like, there's so much shit that can go in between
right.
that that you haven't told me, that I don't want to put together in my head because it's dumb. That I don't know. It's less interesting to me. It's not tactile. It's all floaty, fluffy bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why I never got into UFOs. That's why I never got into I got a little bit into the Area 51 in Roswell was different because again that's a I mean not simple, but it's a simple
Well,
story,
the Area
right?
51 thing,
Alien ship crashes in Roswell. Ship and bodies gets taken to
and
bunker.
we don't
Simple,
even know for
interesting.
sure that that's what's at Area 51. All we know for sure, and the only thing that is actually compelling about the Area 51 story is how fucking intense security is,
Well, yeah.
and how like nobody like it's how secretive they are about Area 51 that makes it so interesting and leads one to the inescapable conclusion that yes, something that they don't want you to know about is going on there.
Well, yeah.
Is
Clearly.
it aliens? Pff, I don't fucking know.
Well, I also like what Joe Rogan says about Skinwalker Ranch in that episode about
Yeah,
aliens.
Skinwalker.
I know we're jumping all over the place, and we said we weren't going to do that, but fuck it.
We can,
We can't do this in sequence. Let's just jump all over the place. It's the only way we're going to talk about
yeah,
it.
at some point we need to list what the episodes were about, but we can do that once we get done talking.
Yeah, because I do want to break down each topic and talk about our own feelings on it. But right now, we're just kind of reviewing the show, so I think it's okay to kind of bounce all over the
Which
place.
Ranch was an interesting thing that they introduced because that was something again that I wasn't completely aware of,
No, I had never heard of that
and it's
before.
very similar to Area 51 in many ways. In terms of
Except it's like a Kmart version of Area
well,
51
it's
because
almost
they show a couple of
it's a
sky
different
shots of
flavor.
it.
It's a different flavor of like the Area 51 story. Instead of secret government facility, it's piece of land that a billionaire like owns, and you're not allowed to go there. And he's all into like paranormal shit.
And he works with the government.
So
He has a contract with
it's
NASA.
almost
I
like
think is
that episode of Doctor Who, right? Where they go into the Dalek episode where
oh the first one,
yeah, where
yeah.
they're underground in that place where the like rich guys got like all the alien artifacts and shit. I almost wonder if that guy was based on this guy.
Well, I mean that was Area 51 though, so
True.
so it's kind of I see what you're saying though because I think the idea is supposed to be because it's like what I'm saying though when I say Kmart Area 51 is like it's a fucking cattle ranch,
Yeah,
bro.
it's literally.
It's what the show The Ranch is about on Netflix. Have you watched that yet? By the way, you should watch that. It's a
No,
good show.
you told me it was good. I haven't watched it.
You should watch it. It's good.
I see
Anyway,
enough farms around here. I don't need to go to TV for that.
yeah, but you don't really see a lot of the actual farm. Most of it takes place in the house, so
Oh, even better.
it's see. So Dylan, how many houses have you seen in your life? Anyway, uh,
All of the houses.
all of the houses. Uh, what I mean though is like you look at it's just a ranch. But I think the idea is supposed to be though that it's what's under the ranch that is compelling, and they also talk a lot about how
You talk to
those
the
cattle.
and you talk to the yokel locals around there, and they give you all these crazy stories about shit that's happened at the ranch, and people have died, and there's been like portals opening in the sides of cliffs, and people seeing things in their pickups, and it's just insane. Uh,
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing too about these fucking kind of places is that people go to them and there are no consistent reports whatsoever. It's a whole bunch of bullshit that goes on. There's also
one dude literally is like staring at Joe Rogan straight face, and is like, a portal to another dimension opened up, and an 8 foot tall metallic spider monster walked out. I'm like, really? This is
well, he doesn't say that. They show it that way, but he just describes it as a monster.
Didn't he say it's 8 foot tall? I thought he said it was eight.
Well, he said 8 feet tall, but he didn't say it was a metallic spider creature.
Okay.
But he just said it was an 8 foot tall
Well, the picture
monster.
that they showed was a metallic spider.
Yeah, I thought that was weird though because there was no indication that it was a metallic at all. What he said was metallic was that out of the light there was a metal door that opened and the creature came out of it.
Yeah.
I'm not that I'm saying like, oh, that makes the whole thing true. I'm just saying that, like, let's be accurate to the crazy
That's
people's reports,
like
Dylan.
that's a pretty ballsy statement to make. It's one thing to be like, I've seen something over my pickup. It's another thing to be like, 8 foot tall monster walks out of portal.
See it's specific. That stuff's more interesting to me. It's super specific.
Yeah.
And by the way, I want to ask you this. So Joe Rogan brings up a lot in this episode about how, in the alien episode, about how, like, there's no physical evidence of any of this, and they talk a couple of times about how people have been reported to be killed in instances of encounters with UFOs. So my question is, has anybody ever looked into those people's deaths? Like, what does it say when on their death certificate? Like, what does
Well,
it say on the police
a good
report?
conspiracy theorist would tell you that all of the coroners involved in all of those autopsies were approached by the Men in Black, and that those autopsy results were altered to make it seem as if they died in perfectly explainable ways.
But I'm just saying, I'd like to know what those altered documents say, those allegedly altered documents, because that's still going to give you an indication of whether or not it's bullshit.
Right.
Because if the guy died fucking like autoerotic asphyxiation, I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking there was some weird shit going on here. But if it's like,
Yeah, autoerotic
oh,
asphyxiation is weird shit indeed.
well, see, I said that, and I'm like, that was supposed to be the, like, he actually died that way. That wasn't supposed to be the one the government fucking like messed up. Because what I mean is, like, if he died with autoerotic asphyxiation, I'm saying, like, some guy was probably like, well, wouldn't it be cooler if we said he was killed by aliens? See, because I wish you guys would be friends, like, you and Andres and Dave would be friends like that to me, where it's like, if I ever died of autoerotic asphyxiation, you'd be like, he died, get it, he died fighting
What if it was
aliens.
that guy's brother and he found out that like his brother died of like autoerotic asphyxiation? He was like, "Nah, man, I'm gonna do you a solid. I'm gonna tell everyone it was an 8 foot tall metallic spider creature from another dimension."
Exactly. That's probably what happened. Um, but the other interesting thing about Skinwalker Ranch was that the cattle traps, as that guy was a fucking lunatic, by the way. The guy who also allegedly had a Bigfoot encounter. And that was the moment where Joe Rogan was like, if anybody sees a UFO and Bigfoot in the same lifetime, I'm like, nope. Cause that's so shady. But he's just like, uh oh, they have cattle traps where it's like they intentionally put cattles out, they watch them, and they watch as the aliens come down and mutilate them, because they were talking about how, like, cattle mutilations used to be a big problem, and it was that was UFOs and aliens and the paranormal were blamed a lot for that.
Yeah, that and crop circles, both things,
Crop circles.
both things that can be explained away as bored teenagers in small towns. But
Well, that's the thing. He didn't even get into crop circles, presumably because that's a very, very dead horse that no longer needs to be kicked. Like, that's nobody even questioning that
anything that
anymore.
M Night Shyamalan pays lip service to in a movie can no longer be taken seriously.
Shama Dalai Lama.
Yes,
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, no, that the Skinwalker Ranch shit was very interesting. I also just loved anytime Duncan went out into the field. Fuck, that was fun.
Duncan's
Like
fucking hilarious.
that he was great. He's T.J. Miller, but a friend of Joe Rogan's. But that's okay. I like T.J. Miller, so I'm fine with him having a clone.
I don't like T.J. Miller so much. I applauded when he died in Transformers 3 or 4, whichever
Did you
fucking.
see Deadpool?
No, is he in that?
Yeah, he's great in Deadpool.
Oh
That was the
wait, yeah,
movie.
he's in the trailer. I remember that now.
He plays Weasel in Deadpool. Yeah,
See,
when you do eventually get around to seeing Deadpool, he's great in
to be
that.
fair, I
So
haven't had a ton of exposure to T.J. Miller. I just remember being really annoyed by him in Transformers 4.
no, he's every other Transformer character in Transformers. So what did you expect?
Yeah, it's true.
But you get why I'm comparing them, right? Like,
Oh,
they have
he's very T.J. Miller-esque. Like
he's a hipster. He's
he's
fucking.
got a
He
similar,
sounds exactly
a
like him.
very similar voice. Yes, I got flashbacks watching this show.
Yeah, flashbacks to my time in Nam with T.J. Miller.
Flashbacks to T.J. Miller, like Sly stating that he wanted to bang Mark Wahlberg's teenage daughter. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. He was fucking. You were pulling him out of the woods. He was shooting a bunch of Viet Congs as they were coming at you.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
he's very T.J. Miller-esque.
he's very TJ Miller-esque, but he was hilarious, man. I loved it when he was when he went up to the Skinwalker Ranch security gate and he was just screaming at it. I wanted so badly for somebody to come out to him.
Yes, I wanted him He's like, best case scenario, I get the Men in Black come out, and I get to start life over again and reread all the books I've read as if I'm reading them for the first time.
That was hilarious. I also just love the part where he was like, Joe's got a kid. He doesn't want to get arrested, but I don't give a fuck. I'm a silver member of what was the game? I'm a silver member of StarCraft.
Yeah, like, I got no life.
I live alone. I don't give a fuck. If anything, they'll put me in jail. I'll be less lonely. That was hilarious. Oh, okay. So here's the thing we need to talk. Let's go back to the Bigfoot episode because that's where all this started.
Yes.
So we should spend some time on that, and then we can break down the episodes if you
So
want.
as I said, this was the episode that gave me the idea of introducing this show to Bill and talking about it on the show because I knew that he was a big Bigfoot guy.
Now, I would like to briefly cover my Bigfoot interest for just 1 second. Now, I'm hugely into the Bigfoot phenomena. I've done videos with Adam about it. And if you watch those videos, you know in them I claim to be a believer. And I still very much so am in the camp of people who it's like, Bigfoot supporter or whatever. I'm definitely waving the flag. But I'm very much so one of those people now that's like, I accept the I'm a Jeff Meldrum type. Jeff Meldrum is the guy who Joe Rogan actually brought onto the podcast in this episode. Not that he went out and interviewed.
Yeah.
And he is probably the most intelligent person commenting on Bigfoot in the field ever because he's a legit anthropologist. He studies primarily human migration, or no, not human migration. I'm an idiot. Human, like anatomy and locomotion and all that. He's obsessed with Bigfoot footprints and what they all mean and the anatomical.
Is this the guy who was
relations.
Is this the guy who was defending the Patterson footage?
Yeah, and he makes See, here's the weird thing about the Patterson footage. The Patterson footage has never legitimately been debunked as a hoax. Like it never has. Like people, if you bring that video up to people, they'll be like, "Oh, that was debunked as a hoax years ago." Not true. It never has been. Roger Patterson went to his deathbed, claiming that video was real. He took a lie detector test very recently before he died and passed. I mean, this is the lie detector test of like the fucking early 70s, but
I don't know
he
though.
still passed.
I kind of can't help but be on Joe Rogan's side when he brings up the fact that it just looks like a fucker in a monkey suit.
Well, but you gotta also remember what.
Like I actually saw a stand-up bit that he did somewhere where he was talking about the Patterson footage because he actually mentioned in the stand-up set that he was doing that he had that he had done this show on Sci-Fi before called Joe Rogan Questions Everything.
Right.
And he does this whole set about how it's just a motherfucker in a monkey suit walking through the forest.
But you gotta listen to what Jeff Meldrum said though, because it's when you look at the details of how it walks, it doesn't really though, because I mean it does, it definitely does a bit, but when you think about
I will definitely say that is definitely to the untrained eye, um, to me, which is an untrained eye, it definitely just looks like some schmo in a monkey suit walking.
Oh no, but I think to a trained eye it does. Like if you look closely at it, like there's lots of things about it that you could pick out and go, well, that could very easily be faked, and that looks weird, and that looks clunky. But there's so much about it that doesn't line up. That is incredibly, because you also got to remember who Roger Patterson was. Because and there's two camps about this. I don't want to spend too much time on this because this is a podcast unto itself.
Wouldn't it be hilarious
But
if this was an unintentional hoax? Like Robert, the guy, he saw some random dude who was wearing a monkey suit out in the woods.
that is also that, but that is one of the theories as well, is that Roger Patterson had no idea it was a hoax, and that it was all his partner Bob Gimlin, he's still alive, and he was the guy who was with him, and he's of course been like the only fucking voice in the darkness who's like, my friend wasn't a crazy man, he actually did see Bigfoot, and filmed him. Or her rather, because it was a female Bigfoot, at least allegedly.
Yeah, see, I've heard that too, and I was like, how are they supposed to be able to tell that it's a female Bigfoot?
Because it has breasts, and you can see the nipples when you zoom in.
Okay, see, okay.
Yeah, you can see the breasts, and
I would have to look closer at the pattern.
No. Look at a high def version of it. You'll see the tits. And that's why a lot of people say it's not. That's one of the first things that people point to it not being a hoax, because
of course
it's like,
it could be an out of shape male Sasquatch. I certainly have.
Certainly. There's other things that people have read into it though, and been like, oh, this is why it's a female. But whatever. It's got
I
tits.
certainly have.
That's why people say it's a female.
I certainly have similar appendages, despite my gender.
Right. But you know what's interesting? So people are like, oh, it's weird that they would pick a female because Bigfoot is so stereotypically male that, it's instantly giving them credibility for it to be female. But you know what though? They could have thought of that preemptively and done it on purpose for that reason. But who knows?
Right. Yeah.
Here's
People are
what's weird.
expecting a male Bigfoot. We'll give them a female Bigfoot, which means still Bigfoot, but not as big of a foot, because we all know that women's shoe sizes are smaller.
Here's what it is though. There have been tests done, and some of these tests have been done on shows that are of shady, of shady repute. But a lot of tests have been done in that footage of people trying to recreate the moves the creature in that film does. And not only can they not do it, but it would be even more impossible to do in a suit.
Right.
And and just to put the nail in the coffin, that footage was shot before the original Planet of the Apes, and Planet of the Apes was
Really,
the
I have
apps.
no idea how old the Patterson footage is, by the way. How
It's from 60. Oh, fuck. See, now you're fucking making me. I think it was 66.
mm,
I'm gonna have to look it up now just to be sure.
I think it's very good footage for that time period, honestly.
Well, I mean, it's also you got to remember he took out that can. Okay, so do you know anything about Roger Patterson?
Not really, no, not extensively. See, I
He
sort of
was
had
not. He
the
was.
I sort of had the relationship to Bigfoot that you had with some other um uh some of these other paranormal subjects, in that I was vaguely interested in it, but I was never like a big uh buff about it. So I don't really know a whole ton about all this Bigfoot shit. Like I know that the Patterson footage is a thing, and it looks like a guy in a monkey suit.
Yeah. Well, and here it was shot in 67, so actually it was closer to Planet of the Apes than I thought. So the Planet of the Apes was probably shooting when around when this was shot. So
I'm actually
maybe
looking
maybe
at the
John
footage right
maybe
now. I'm actually looking at the footage right now, and I just love the moment where he looks at the camera like, "Hey, what up?"
yeah, it was she. So Dylan, let's be real here.
I almost think it
Well,
would be better footage if he didn't look at the camera. Honestly.
well, so that's the thing that moment is why a lot of people think it's bullshit is because it's so well timed. But you want to know what the context of that footage is? Again, allegedly, the context of that footage is they were, and if you watch the whole unedited clip, you will be able to tell this instantly. What the unedited footage shows is that they were on horseback when they saw it, and Roger Patterson fell off his horse, tumbled to get the camera out, runs towards the thing, quickly zooms in, and gets the footage that everybody is familiar with. And the creature looking is right when Roger stops, like where he's gonna film, and it looks back also because one of the horses is apparently freaking out behind him.
Huh.
So that's why it turned, because the horses were freaking out. Again, this is all allegedly. This is all what Bob Gimlin has said later. It could all be fabricated. It could be in a guy in a monkey
What's
suit
interesting
walking
is
in
it
front of the
almost
footage.
looks, but the interesting thing is there's an odd fluidity of motion to it,
Yeah,
in that it
exactly. That's why.
almost
Yeah,
looks like bad CG, like 30 years before bad CG was a thing, which is odd.
but don't you think that that raises the credibility of it because it looks like it's motion that you cannot really compare to anything else. Like, yes, we could say it looks like a guy in a monkey suit walking around, but it doesn't though. When you really look at it, like
Well,
it looks very alien to
it is
how people
certainly,
move.
but it is certainly a variation on a
It's a
very
bipedal person, yeah.
it's certainly a variation on a very humanesque gait. Uh,
Yes, but like it's like when he talks about like the head doesn't bob up and down because the knees don't move the same way people do. It's almost like this weird shuffle walk. Like the Bigfoot throws its foot out and then goes down. And by the way, I don't want to sound like like a raving Bigfoot fanboy defending this footage because like I need it to be true, otherwise I'll die. I don't care. But I know a lot about this, and I just want to I want to put as much out there on it as I can
right.
because we're talking
Well,
about
I
it.
think it's interesting that it's never been debunked. I guess I always assumed that somebody at some point was like, no, it's totally a dude in a monkey suit.
Well, everybody does though. That's a common thing. Everybody talks about this footage like it's bullshit. I remember being in school and taking out books on Bigfoot and showing it to people, and they'd be like, "Isn't that fake?" And I'm like, "Apparently, it's never been debunked."
Yeah.
And but here's the other thing
And what
too,
you're
and
saying,
because
Joe Rogan is definitely guilty of. He definitely he seems to
he just assumed, yeah,
he
definitely, and
seems to
he admits
discount
that.
the Patterson footage pretty quickly.
Because what he didn't know, and I don't think this gets brought up in the show either, because he brings up, oh, somebody claimed to be in the suit. 12 different people claimed to be in the suit.
Right.
And none of them could take the people who they told to the original filming location either,
See, this is like
which
what
has been returned to.
this is what I always wished that famous picture of Nessie would be. That famous picture of Nessie, that
The Chapman picture,
the one
yeah.
that's definitely been debunked,
The one that has been debunked, yeah.
like
And the toy has been found,
every
yeah.
possible way it's been debunked. It's so debunked you can't even bring it up in a conversation anymore.
Exactly. No, it's
As a
totally
child,
invalid.
I always wanted that to be true. And
Exactly. No, I thought it was true until a couple years ago, I think, is when I finally read up on it.
Nessie was to
But
me Nessie was to me sort of what Bigfoot is to you. I think I always wanted that.
I gotcha.
Always wanted that to be real. Damn it.
But Nessie never sat as well with me as Bigfoot. Like I mean,
The problem with Nessie is that if she does exist, she can only exist in a very small area of the world that one can easily explore and be like, nope, didn't find any dinosaurs in there. Where,
I mean, the lock is a lot more vast than people give it credit for. But even still, it's just
but even
it's not fun. There's nothing there for it to eat, Dylan.
it's a
It's impossible.
even so, it's a confined space, and we can quantify how big it is and
Yeah,
the sort of
exactly.
resources that are available within, and it's very easy to just do the math and come up with all these like astronomical numbers about how insanely unlikely it is for it to be a thing. With
Exactly.
Bigfoot, it's more like, no, he's just in North America somewhere, just dicking around in the woods, living with the Hendersons. That's just him.
And I also think that this episode also does a really good job of emphasizing why, because you're right, he ends on an open-minded note of like it it could. I want to go back to Roger Patterson in a second as well, but in the episode, Joe Rogan is like, when you step out into these woods where Bigfoot is allegedly banging around, you immediately get why people believe it, because it's just so insanely dense that you just can't see anything and you get
Yeah,
lost in it. Like he talks about that. And
Rogan definitely did a good job of illustrating that point.
yeah, and that is, but that is sadly one of the most concrete physical pieces of evidence for Bigfoot's existence. There are some people who claim that there's already enough physical evidence to support Bigfoot's existence. Nah,
Now,
like that is a
some of
thing that some people believe.
the other problem is some of the people he talks to are clearly nutty. I'm sorry, but
Oh,
those guys that they went squatching with,
oh God. Can we talk about that in a second? Because I don't want to ruin that joke for people. I want to milk it for a second before we talk about that. But
the gifting
um,
stump.
it's too much. It's too much. Oh, the gifting stump was hilarious. Uh so we'll get to all that in a second. But just to wrap up on Roger Patterson, because he has been seen as one of these crazy people, and partially for good reason. There's a book apparently being written about him. I'm gonna read the shit out of that thing when it's published.
Shit out
But
of their book.
oh, you've no idea, bro. So okay,
I'm vaguely interested now.
Roger Patterson.
I might give it a read as well.
So Roger Patterson was dying of cancer, right?
Okay.
When he went looking for Bigfoot.
They
And
should make a movie about this
he
guy. This sounds very.
that's the thing. They've been talking about it. But you can't do it though because that footage hasn't been debunked. So what do you make the movie about? You can't make it about him faking it because his family will sue. And you
Huh.
can't make it about it being real because you don't know if that's what happened.
Well,
I
you make it in a universe where it is real.
well yeah, well which one do you find so let me just set it up for you completely.
Maybe
So
maybe
Roger
you make a
Patterson was
movie.
broke.
Maybe you make a movie where it's like really ambiguous and you don't know whether he faked it or not. That would be the closest to reality, wouldn't
But
it?
he can't be the protagonist then.
No.
You'd have to make it about some character who like meets him later in life. I mean, he died very very recently after shooting the footage, so this would be hard. You have to make it about like, say, the guy who took the polygraph test or whatever. You can't make it about him.
It's interesting that you
Um,
bring up the fact that this footage came out before Planet of the Apes, because that's
yeah,
something I wasn't aware of, and that certainly says something because monkey suits pre Planet of the Apes were very very
that's
primitive.
that's the
Um,
thing, Dylan. This guy was dirt broke when he shot this footage. Like he was on Dylan. This that like that's why a lot of people think he faked it. This was desperation on
but the
his
thing is,
part.
where would he have
Going off
gotten? where would he have gotten this monkey suit? If
I don't know.
that
It's not possible.
because one thing that I can say about the footage, if that is a monkey suit,
It's possible. It's absolutely possible. It's not feasible.
one thing
Is a better word.
one thing I will say about it, if that is a monkey suit, it is a damn good monkey suit, and
Because Dylan, you know what else?
it
When
would
you
I
zoom in on the
it becomes a fact of either it becomes it lends more credibility to him for two reasons. One, it would be very difficult to find a monkey suit of that caliber in that time period because we all know how bad monkeys looked in movies pre-Planet of the Apes, and
watch Conga.
and even if you could get a monkey suit of that caliber at that time period, the cost of doing so must have been enormous.
He deserves like what and Dylan, it's interesting that you bring up that point, not being into the Bigfoot kind of culture as you're talking about, because that's what a lot of people point out as to why it probably wasn't a hoax, because, or at least a hoax in the way that people say it was, because he couldn't have afforded it. Like I said, he was desperate. He went out to make this documentary to try and prove, because he was hugely into Bigfoot before that. Like, it's not like he was some random guy who who just stumbled upon a Bigfoot one day. No, he was obsessed. And
Stumbled upon a Bigfoot.
exactly, no, he was obsessed, and he'd written several books on the subject, or he was writing one. I don't remember, but he was either writing or had written a book or books on the subject, and he went out into the woods because he'd lost his job. He had nothing else to live for. He wanted to prove that Bigfoot was real, and he was going to do whatever he had to do to do it. And that's why a lot of people say that he faked it, because, or that's what some people say proves that in a way that he faked it, because it's like, paint a picture of that kind of man. Like, what would he do? He would dump all the money he could find into getting a really good monkey suit and fooling people.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so much gray around that footage and around that man, because
God, I
it's
just found a
just
10-minute long video of somebody discussing a single frame of that footage. Jesus Christ.
yeah, no, it's, but have you seen close-ups on the face?
No, I can look for.
Go look one up. It's creepy, dude. Because here's the thing I'll bring up before we move on, because we're almost an hour and I'd like to move on to some of the other stuff because there's stuff to say. But it's got a beard, Dylan. It has a beard.
Yeah,
Like,
look, I'm
that's
looking
creepy.
at it. This guy looks like my relative, man.
She's creepy, dude. Like, it's really disconcerting, because the thing that a lot of people say, a lot of people who've seen Sasquatch, or allegedly, will say that the creepiest thing about it is not that it's big, it's not that it's hairy, it's that the face is human, and that it looks human, and that it acts a little human, and that it's just very disconcerting,
Oh, Bill,
that element of it.
I just found an image, and I gotta say, mystery solved. You know, I solved Bigfoot. Here you go.
Oh, great. Here we go. I've been waiting for this my entire life. Ah! He's doing the Kessel Run, Dylan. It's the Kessel Run.
Yeah,
No,
man. I'm
it's
thinking him and
The
Han.
Kessel
I'm
Shuffle.
thinking him. I'm thinking after the death of Han Solo, he comes to Earth out of grief. He flees his own galaxy, finds himself on Earth, and then spends hundreds of years being Sasquatch.
Dylan, that happened in a comic.
Did that happen in
Did
the
you know
comic?
that? Yes. There's a Star Wars What If about Han Solo and Chewie fucking up with the Millennium Falcon, light speeding to some other planet, some bumfuck planet. Turns out to be Earth. And it's like the 1800s or whatever. They crash the Falcon, and Han Solo gets killed by Native Americans, and Chewie escapes, and Chewie becomes the legendary Sasquatch. And
I
Dylan,
had a similar idea once, but the idea was Han Solo comes to Earth like way in the past, and he can't get back to his own galaxy, so like he just like settles down here and starts having children, and then one of his descendants winds up being Indiana Jones.
that was the thing. Guess who found the relic of the Millennium Falcon and the bones of Han Solo?
It was
It was Indiana Jones, and an older Short Round. That was the first time they ever brought back Short Round, and
beautiful.
he was like a teenager.
I've
Yeah.
always wanted to see an older short round.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't know why people hate. I mean, listen, I get why people hate him, but I like Short Round, so
Just because
fuck
people
you.
hate that.
And that's coming from somebody who doesn't like Temple of Doom.
It's just because people hate that movie, and you hate that movie
I do hate that
because you
movie.
don't have a
No,
soul.
I don't. So it makes sense. Well, neither does that movie, so it makes sense. I hate things that remind me of myself. Uh, so Dylan, the Patterson footage is immensely interesting. Dylan, would you be down to at some point next season? Because we've already got the rest of the season
Some point
booked.
next season, we review the Patterson footage.
Well, no, but would you be down for me to show you a bunch of different Bigfoot evidence that you probably haven't seen and discussing it?
Sure.
And listen, no, I'll pull out stuff that's legit. I'm not gonna show you like fucking some bumfuck like redneck running around in the woods going like, "You hear them sounds? That's a Bigfoot."
I wish I could do the same thing about Nessie, but there's really just not much, is there? Um,
No,
damn.
not really. But would you be down to do that?
Sure, why not?
Because I've got lots to say. There's lots that I can point you to, and there's lots of interesting discussions that we can have as a person who knows not almost everything. That's arrogant, but I know a lot about Bigfoot lore and about the different footage, and the different pictures and the different audio recordings and the history of them and the context of them. So it might be interesting to do that. But let's move on to the other episodes since there's more to this show than just Bigfoot. But before we leave Bigfoot, let's talk about the people who he goes squatching with.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the other thing I wanted to ask you though,
uh-huh.
did you buy into the guy who was like a linguist and he was talking about how it sounded like it was a language and shit?
Yeah, not to the extent he was talking about it, where he was like breaking down the words and everything. I didn't
Yeah.
understand that.
As soon as he
Like,
started, as soon as he
I kind of
started
wish.
doing that, I was like, now you've lost all credibility. Before I
Well,
could
yeah.
kind of see what he was talking about because it was
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very
it
creepy.
was certainly much more complex than your typical ape chatter.
Yeah, definitely. But it sounded like ape chatter, and that's the thing.
But when Rogan was like, my bullshit meter's going off the charts with this one, I was like, yeah, I'm with you, Rogue. I'm with you.
Oh, definitely. Well, no, just because he's like, "Undi bunny, solid food," and it's like, what? Like, what do you? It's animal guttural noises. If there is meaning to it, you're never gonna figure out what it is because their fucking frame of reference is different than yours. You dumb fuck.
Right.
Like, he's basing it like there's some fucking. I also love the story of how he like got into all this too. How he became a crypto linguist, where he's just like, I was just fucking chilling with my son one day, and his son was like, "Hey, Dad, what does a Bigfoot sound like?" And he's like, I don't know, let's Google it. And he just got wrapped up in all these Bigfoot sounds and analyzed them. And he's like,
Yeah.
that's a language. And it's like,
To be fair,
well,
he was a trained linguist before that point. It's not like
no,
some
yes, but I'm saying that's
amateur
why
who
he,
heard
yeah.
this shit and was like, "Hey, that sounded like me want food." No, he was actually a guy who like was trained in like decoding languages and shit for the government or whatever. And then he heard some of this Bigfoot chatter and was like, "Hey, that actually sounds pretty interesting." And he's devoted a bunch of time to it. I
And it's
definitely,
crazy because he's right. It's just he's right for the wrong reasons.
well, he's right. He just goes a little overboard with it, I think.
Oh, definitely. But what did you make of those noises? Like, do you think that's compelling, or do you think that could be written away as anything?
It is interesting that almost everyone he talks to describes pretty much the same noise that we hear in that scene.
Yeah, no. The woman at the end though breaks it down even more, and that's the thing about Bigfoot too. That's why I put a lot more stock in it than a lot of these other bullshit myths. It it's consistent. Everybody reports the same thing. Everybody reports the same sounds. Everybody describes this. I mean, not everybody. There are some weirdos in the Bigfoot community who
They're,
believe some very weird things.
they're the
Like
people. They're the
I've read
people who
books
get
about.
molested by Bigfoot and then turn into a Bigfoot.
No, it's not even that's Dylan. That's like the most normal of the Bigfoot. Like Dylan, there's books written about how Bigfoot is God
Oh, okay.
and
Well,
created the human
I once
race.
had the thought of like, what if Bigfoot is like we always assume that Bigfoot would be like this less advanced creature, but what if it was like the fucking that fucking city of super intelligent apes from the DC universe? What if it was that?
Or like the Sasquatch people from the Marvel universe. There's an entire race of big feet in the Marvel universe that are a secret society.
Super,
Who are all the different creatures that the Sasquatch legend is based on, or the different versions of them.
what if we got a
Like there's a Yeti, there's a Bigfoot, there's a Yowie, there's a fucking Yeren.
what if we had got a reinterpretation of like Flash, where Gorilla Grodd was a misidentified Bigfoot from like a super intelligent race of big feet?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the problem with that is that the Bigfoot description doesn't really match a gorilla. Like it doesn't really sound like the way people draw it and the way it's described. It doesn't really sound like a gorilla. Like that's always what people go to, but it's like
Yeah.
it
Well,
doesn't really match
when
up.
people think big ape, the first natural place your brain goes is oh fucking gorilla, you know.
But they're more like giant chimpanzees, and that's kind of why they're scarier. Because I mean, I think you'll agree, chimpanzees are 10 times scarier than
Oh,
gorillas.
chimps are infinitely more frightening than gorillas.
And that's what makes me more. Listen, I'll be honest. I am terrified of Bigfoot, and it's weird because I'm so fascinated by it, but it's because I know so much about it that like it scares me. Because if it's anything like what people describe, I never ever want to be within 5 feet of one because I don't want to be in. I don't want to be next to any animal that's that smart because it scares me. You know, like anything that's on the same intelligence plane as you. I don't want anything to do, especially a big potential predator like a Bigfoot might be. Like we don't know what the fuck their behavior's like, but it's indicated that they're omnivores, so they would have to at least in some way behave in a predatory sense. And
There's a moment where Joe Rogan's like, "What do you think this thing's diet's like?" And they're like, "Whatever it wants, man."
exactly. Well, it would have to be. If I mean, think about the way humans evolved in North America. We were omnivores, so why wouldn't Bigfoot be?
Yeah.
And Dylan, are you familiar with? He doesn't really get into it, strangely enough, in the episode. Do you know the theory as to what exactly Bigfoot is? Like, the whole human hybrid thing is complete crap. Don't even listen to that.
No, no.
But do you know what like the actual scientific theory is as to what Bigfoot is?
I mean, he brings up the whole Gigantopithecus thing at one point.
Well, that is the starting point, but do you want to know where that goes? Is what I'm asking.
Is it supposed to be like a more evolved form of Gigantopithecus,
Well, of
like what
course,
the
but
V-Rexes and King Kong were to T-Rexes?
a bit. It's a little more complicated than that though, just because of the change in environment. So the idea is that because you got to remember where humans come from. Humans traveled across the great the land bridge that existed between Alaska and Russia. I forget what era that was, but there was a bridge that existed, and that's how humans got to North America.
Hmm.
And uh, and the theory goes that people who existed around the same time as Gigantopithecus were followed by Gigantopithecus across this land bridge to North America for whatever reason, following the migrations of herds or whatever they were doing, whatever the reason was that we came over.
Right.
And when they came over, they adapted and evolved in the same ways that we did. Not obviously, it'd have to be a bit more to adapt to this environment.
Couldn't it also
And the
be
idea
entirely possible that they could have evolved from humanity, being an offshoot of us?
Not really, because because
Or more
people came to this part of the world too recently for that to be true.
or
Because
more
the
accurately,
adaptations that we're talking about with going from a Gigantopithecus to a Bigfoot is a jump of like the thing changed. It's like a domestic house cat to like a feral cat. Like it's like it's the adaptation to the environment is what caused it. It's not like a drastic need for an environmental change. You know what I mean?
right.
We're not talking mutations here. We're talking like the hair got more matted because it was in a colder environment. We're talking about it got a little smaller because it was in a more closed off environment. You know what I mean? Like
There's
that's
only
it.
one plausible explanation. The high evolutionary from Marvel is real, and
I agree.
and he traveled back
As a Bigfoot believer, I agree.
and he traveled back in time with fucking King the Conqueror, and they just started fucking with shit and accidentally created Big Feet. I can buy
It
that.
makes
I can
sense.
buy that.
I can buy that too. All right. Well, Dylan, do you want to move on to
I don't see
all the other stuff?
I don't see why that wouldn't be true. Oh, also, I thought it was hilarious.
It's more plausible than everything else we've talked about now.
One more thing to add to the to the Bigfoot thing. I thought it was hilarious.
Oh no, we've got more to say. I'm sorry. We have other things I wanted to say about this episode, so go ahead.
I thought it was fucking hilarious how confident that guy was in the bear poop.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because he was just like, oh, it's big logs. Only people have these big log poops, and Bigfoot is close to people. So, and I'll be honest, that got me for a minute. I was like, hey, that's a good point. I never thought of that.
But just because
And
that's typically what human shit looks
well, no,
to
yeah,
look like as opposed to other shits. There's also times when human shit, like, you can look down in the toilet and be like, damn, that looks like fucking rabbit shit, because, you get, like, the little pellets and shit. Like, animals don't just poop one certain way. Like,
oh, no, I agree. You're right. But in the moment, like that's the problem with these shows is in the moment you can constrain anything to sound legit, and Joe Rogan uses that to make a point in the Bigfoot episodes. Dylan, let's talk
but
about.
that guy was just so confident. He was like, if there was one sample in this entire lab that I would send to get tested, it would be this here lump of shit. And Joe takes it to that fucking forensic guy.
To that guy who has been involved in several Bigfoot
That
documentaries over the
that
years.
forensic guy who, to me, looked a little bit like Brad Jones, but skinnier with a mohawk.
Yeah, and he's been in Bigfoot documentaries before.
And he's like, "No, it's bear shit." Like, and it makes
Yeah.
everything else in that dude's lab seem completely debunked by proxy, just because of how much confidence he put in that lump of
Well,
shit.
exactly. I mean, everything that these people, it's like they're all about proving an agenda. A lot of them, and that's not science. It's like they're all about proving the agenda of believing in
Yeah.
Sasquatch, and it's
And
like,
when someone brings up a perfectly logical question, like the one point when Joe Rogan's like, "So why is it that nobody ever like catches one on camera?" And they're like, "No, they're elusive. That's like the whole point." I'm like, "That's not an explanation."
well, I mean, it's a bit of an excuse, and I like what the fucking random woman they interview towards the end says, because it makes a lot more sense. Okay, so I agree with you, because what that guy said is that they're able to detect cameras and camera traps in order to get away from them. That's bullshit, crap.
Now,
Don't even.
well, is it though?
Camera traps is a different story. Yeah, that I can buy. That a hyper intelligent primate could look at that and go, "That's not something I want
Well, the
anything to
other
do
question
with."
would be because some creatures are like birds, for instance, are capable of like sensing like electromagnetic waves, and which would be produced by technology. And is it possible that some primate might develop a sense similar to that, and thus
Why would they develop that though naturally?
that's a good fucking well, the birds use it for navigation, so perhaps for that reason. I don't know.
I mean, there are a lot
It's
of
a
there are
it's
a
a
lot of people who theorize that Sasquatch migrates. So maybe who knows,
it,
but
it's
you see why
it's certainly a stretch, but you can say okay, kinda. I can almost.
there's a simpler explanation though, and that's why that guy bothered me. I like what the woman says. People aren't prepared. Like when you bump into a Sasquatch, you're so fucking astounded that you're like, I don't have the time or the energy to get my fucking camera out. And then
You
what she also
know how
says, and
much
this is a lot.
bullshit those messing with Sasquatch commercials are? Like, who does that?
Oh yeah, no, like you see a Bigfoot and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go up to it and rip it and like make it fart. It's like, no, it's gonna rip your arm off.
I'm gonna fucking put whipped cream in its hand and then tickle it.
Especially that Bigfoot, because that Bigfoot looks like a fucking demon. Like, that's not what Bigfoot supposedly
Bigfoot in
looks
those
like.
commercials is pretty terrifying, isn't it?
He's a monster, but Bigfoot's not supposed to look like that. He's supposed to be like like your Chewbacca type. Like Chewbacca is a very not really actually. Chewbacca's like a cat version of Bigfoot.
Because these
Like
Bigfoot
there's
stories are never like deer hunting stories. It's never like we sat up in the tree for 3 days and we're almost out of provisions. When
some of them are.
finally the Bigfoot broke out into the clearing. It's more like, nah, I was out in the woods and I seen Bigfoot on the side of my pickup, and and that's
It was over my pickup, and then it went under my pickup, and then it went on the side of my pickup.
then it picked up my pickup and
There's also a great. I'm sorry to keep cutting you off. There's a great story about. It's kind of sad. About this fucking guy who opened the side door. He's in a pickup truck with his friend, right?
oh, he's in a pickup.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah, yeah. He pulls over to the side of the road.
Instantly invested in this story.
Pulls over to the side of the road, about to take a piss, right?
Right, right,
And
as you
it's
do.
this. No, yeah, exactly. Opens the door, and the second he opens the door, he just gets grabbed by something. And imagine if you and there's a similar story to that in this show.
It picked
Imagine if you went
it
through
picked
that
me
and
up
you
out of my pickup.
well, I don't think it picked him up, but it grabbed him and it tried to rip him out of the truck, and
Well, one
his friend like grabbed him and everything. And nobody knows why, but and he
the
said it was
guy in Joe
Bigfoot.
Rogan Questions Everything's like he spun me around like a child. He like lifted me off the ground. I'm like shit. Uh,
Wait, who said that?
the first guy, the one who was talking about how he was like out in the woods with his family and like they seen the
He
Bigfoot.
got picked up and attacked?
He mentioned that it like apparently he like bumped into the thing and apparently it like spun him around like a child. And I got the impression that he like got air. uh,
Oh, see, I missed that part of the story then, because what I
and
interpreted that story as was, oh my.
maybe I'm misremembering, but he did definitely say that the thing like turned him around like a child or something.
See, but I thought it was just he saw it, because what I remember is he went up like away from his family briefly, which was weird. I'm like, why'd you do that? Like that's a weird part of the story. I'm like, that's a weird detail. Why did you go away from your family if you're so fucking concerned for their safety?
I left my family
And
to defend my pickup.
which I brought with me, of course, because I don't go anywhere without my pickup. Uh, and at one point, uh, he goes, I went up this hill and I saw Bigfoot, and instantly he starts talking about like, fight or flight. Like I had to instantly there was a reaction in him where he started crying. I needed to go defend my family. Now I like that he started with a story like that. That guy is out of his mind, but
He
um.
definitely did have conviction while telling that story.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that was bullshit though? Because like he just started crying for no reason. Like
I don't know. I
he's
don't know.
I
He
can't
kind of
come down.
because he was talking about, he was scared for his family.
Well, no.
I
I
could
get
buy it.
that.
I can buy it. I mean, I
I
think.
can buy it. I was just wondering if you did, because you're a lot more cynical than I am, and I was cynical in that moment, so I wanted to see if you were.
Not. I mean, do I believe it? I don't know. I'm just saying that I think he did a pretty decent job of selling it.
I believe that guy saw something that scared him. I just don't know if it was Bigfoot. But his story is like the lesser part of his fucking insanity. What I love is when he's like, "Let's go down to our Bigfoot habitation area," and Joe Rogan is like, "His yard,"
Yeah.
because that's what it is. It's his backyard. And he's like, "Bigfoot's back here," and I'm like, "Where the fuck is this?"
Yeah. Who is
That's like right, like that's an important question to ask.
who is this man, and how did he go from "I'm terrified for my family" to
I want to hang out in the backyard with a bunch of Bigfoots, draw them to me. Because that's what he explains. He's like, I draw the Bigfoots to me by leaving food out, which is absolute garbage. I did that as a fucking kid in my upstate house to try and attract Bigfoot. You know what I attracted? Fucking deer.
I mean, yeah.
Because that's what you do. Like, that's why I kind of liked what
Bigfoot wants to
that
hunt. You can't eliminate 65 million years of instinct.
gut instinct. 65 million years, because that's how long Bigfoot would have been around.
I mean,
Dylan,
him and his ancestors, yeah.
no, because mammals were barely a thing 65 million years
I
ago.
mean, I'm talking about very early ancestors. I'm talking about fucking like little shrews.
Talking about the mice that evolved into
I'm talking
Bigfoot.
about little shrews that were crawling around in the ground underneath the Tyrannosaurus rexes, who actually,
I,
who,
by
act-
the way, I also love how we're both talking about that episode of Walking with Dinosaurs.
who would have delineated, by the way, from those even earlier creatures that predated the dinosaurs. Like the Dimetrodon and shit. The lizards that were starting to become mammals. I forget.
Oh well, no, Dimetrodon was pre the point where
Well, what was that?
uh
What was that fucking?
Dimetrodon was post the point where the lizards that eventually were the reptiles that evolved into dinosaurs already split off from what Dimetrodons were.
Right. But like there was the group, I always forget what they're called, but like they're a group of reptiles that are starting to become mammals, like they're starting to like be warm-blooded, and then
Oh
some of
yeah.
them start like sprouting hair and shit.
Yeah, those weird, like, weasel-looking lizard things in the first episode of Walking with Dinosaurs.
Yeah, I forget what they're called. There's like a whole
I forget what they're... A xylophone.
Yeah, but like the overall family, I don't remember. There's like a whole thing. Anyway,
Oh, I don't remember that, no.
um
But anyway, so let's get to the really funny part of this, because I love the ending. It ends great. Because this show does a thing that every one of these shows, every one of these paranormal exploration shows does, which is there's a fucking teaser the whole time about them going out in the woods at night towards the end and finding something, and them running around going, "Oh shit, what's that? What's that? Oh god, what is that?"
yeah.
There's like every one of these shows
And they
does
did
that, and
that
this is
here
no
because
and they did it intentionally,
you
which I thought was
you
hilarious.
can't do a Sasquatch episode and not go squatching. I mean, that's just
No, by the way, I loved the build up to it. Is always like, "Duncan, will you go with me to the woods and go squatching?" And he's like, "No."
and he's like, "Of course I'll go fucking squatch it." I was like,
Dylan, I feel like that would be. I feel like in that moment, Joe Rogan and Duncan became you and I,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and I was the one who was like, "Dylan, do you want to go squatching?" And you're like, "Fuck no." Like I was just like that felt like a moment of friendship between you and I, where it's like, "Dylan, do you want to go do this dumb thing with me for no reason?" And it's like, "Fuck no," and then yes,
One of these days, Bill. One of these days, we gotta go squatching, man.
yo, I would. Yes, I'm so about that.
I've,
Let's go squatching,
I've
Dylan.
never squatched before. I'm not even
Me
outdoorsy.
neither.
I'm not even
No,
outdoorsy. But I would squatch.
I'm, let's go squatching, Dylan. When you come up for G Fest, we'll go up to, because the Bigfoot hotspot in New York is a town called Whitehall. So you go up to Whitehall, we'll fucking go squatching.
We can visit the gifting stump.
AKA my toilet.
It moved. Oh,
It moved. All right, so let's talk about those fucking lunatics at the end. So these motherfuckers, right? One of them looks like the uncle from Duck Dynasty. The other
also,
one looks
also, I
like
love
any guy you see on the street ever.
I also love wood knocking. It's something that's actually a decent idea, but like Joe Rogan just makes it ridiculous because he's like squatching and wood knocking and like he just
Well, they make it ridiculous. I mean, the Squatchers, because they're like, oh, it's a Bigfoot mating call. I have never, ever heard that as an actual scientific theory until I bumped into these fucking lunatics.
I'm
And
sure Okay, that's obviously your speculation. You need to preface
Right.
that statement by saying our speculation is
I
that.
mean, but like that was so downplayed. They were like, "Nah, they're fucking," and it's like, okay.
Like maybe if they had worded it a little differently, like we're pretty sure they do this to communicate, and maybe they can use it as a mating call. I don't know. Uh, that's an interesting question. I wonder if big feet have mating seasons, or if they mate,
Oh, they have to.
or if
I mean, because don't primates? I mean, technically, don't we have a mating season?
no, we mate year round, man,
No, but don't we have one?
all the time. No, man, not really.
Oh, okay. But women ovulate, and that I mean that's not a mating season, but
No,
that's
that's
the time of the
that's like a
month where
once
it's
a month.
prime for them
That's what's
to
a
mate.
month. That's like a once a month thing, though. But that's what I'm saying. It's like a year round.
No, I got you. I'm just asking if it does exist.
Human beings,
But what's it
because
based
that's the
on?
interesting thing. Human beings are like obsessed with sex all the time, like 24/7.
I wonder why.
Whereas animals, dude, a cow is not thinking about sex until it's mating season. That cow just wants to eat some fucking grass. There's like a specific window of the year where it's like, all right, let's fuck, and then after that,
Did
like,
we ever have a mating season?
then like after that, he like rolls off and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go eat some grass. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, you know what, the Dylan. You know what we should bear in mind
I don't know
though.
if the other primates have specific mating seasons.
I doubt that they do though, and you know why? Because their populations are always in such danger. Because you got to remember, that's why we turned into what we turned into. Like we were
Probably
fucked.
that was probably a way to keep the population.
Exactly, is able to mate year round because that was part of the you read a lot about the
I can't
about
speak
the
for.
theoretical the theoretical origin of our species, and a lot of it is about how we were these terrified fucking monkeys in trees, and we came down to the ground, and it was because we were so at threat of dying every second that we became as smart as we
So
were.
no wonder we're so fucked up, honestly.
Yeah, it's true.
It's I can't speak for all species of ape, but I know that bonobos are horny
I
fuckers.
can. I can.
I know that bonobos are horny fuckers. They fuck all the time, man.
And bonobos are the ones that we're closest to, right?
It's them and chimps, man. Them and chimps aren't we like?
Well, no, but bonobos are chimps, aren't they?
I think they're like very closely related, aren't they?
But I think
Aren't they
they're a
like a
subspecies of
subset?
chimpanzee.
All I know is like us and chimps, 90 something percent apart. And bonobos, if they are subspecies of chimp, or if they're just of like their next door relative on the family tree,
I
whatever.
mean, if you look at a bonobo, that is a Bigfoot. I mean, it's insane. Like it's a person. Like it's really really scary. Like looking at them.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're super gentle. Like that's the thing about a lot of chimps and a lot of great apes. They look so regal and gentle and very at
No,
peace with
yeah. The
themselves.
gorillas are the nicest ones, and
I love
they're the
gorillas.
ones that always get characterized in media because oh, big scary gorilla. Nah, man, you can chill with a gorilla as long as they're like cool with you or whatever.
Yeah,
A chimp will like be your friend for like 20 years, and then all of a sudden one day he just fucks.
the riddle just rip your nuts off because it deems you as a mating threat. Like that's the thing. Like it's crazy.
A chimp will you raise a chimp on like you like breastfeed it yourself and shit, and you raise it for like 15 years, and then one day it's like I want to wear your face as a mask, and like that's one thing I've always wanted to like take bad movies and do like just like a five list of things that they did right. And one of the things that I would say about 2001 Planet of the Apes, they got the apes right because the chimps are fucking insane in that movie, and the gorillas are just like regal.
Like that's because that's the weird thing about Planet of the Apes is that the way they characterize the apes is a bit off.
In the 60s
Because
version, in the 60s, and in the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
well, no, the newer versions do have the insane chimp.
No, the newer versions are closer to the '60s version where the chimps are. But you know what? They're more of like they're like a '60s version of the chimp. They're like the '60s chimps, but like with the scientifically accurate mindset of we know what chimps are like now, because the
There's an
apes,
interesting mixture in like
the chimps were pacifists. They were pacifistic scientists,
there's an
and
interesting mixture in the new Planet of the Apes films where it's like here's Caesar and he's like a classic Planet of the Apes chimp, but then here's Koba and he's fucking Thade from the last one. Okay.
well,
Um,
he's your Aldo type. He replaces Aldo in the canon of Planet of the Apes because that's what happened
yeah,
to to Caesar and Aldo in the original timeline, or not the original timeline actually, because in the original timeline Aldo was the one who started the revolution.
true, true.
Um,
then things
and then
change.
Caesar, and then Caesar came along in the new time, in the second timeline,
It's very
and
Terminator in that they went back in
it's
time.
oh yeah. I've always wanted a crossover between Planet of the Apes and Terminator because you could totally do it. It would make perfect sense too.
They went
You
back. Yeah,
do it in the original timeline.
because Planet of the Apes could just be further down the timeline than Terminator is.
You make Planet of the Apes happen, like, or you make you okay. Basically what you need to do is you
Basically, all
take the
that would need to
Terminator,
happen is
you take the Terminator universe as is, and then you stick the original Planet of the Apes at the very end.
all you really have to do is the humans finally beat Skynet, but like the world is ruined and they have to like retreat underground to survive, and they wind up becoming mutants. Meanwhile, on the surface, fucking apes, man.
All right, Dylan, I'm gonna pitch some fan fiction to you right now. So John Connor becomes the leader of the mutants
My God.
and worships the golden nuclear bomb as a means as to which he like as a means to create and destroy, because what if it was revealed that Skynet was killed using nuclear weapons?
My God.
Like they put in, because obviously it's never been explained in the original Terminator what exactly they did
What if the golden bomb?
to destroy Skynet's computer mainframe.
What if the golden bomb, the one with the cobalt core that can finally destroy the entire planet, is created by Skynet?
Oh, that's crazy interesting. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, I guess why they didn't use it was because they wanted to use the Earth. Like Skynet wasn't dumb. Although I don't know why they didn't. I don't know why Skynet didn't just go fuck this planet. I'm putting my fucking mind on a probe and going out to see what's out there in space. Like I don't know why it was so preoccupied with world domination.
Yeah, man. Or it built a time machine, dude. Just go back millions of years and just take over human evolution. Just hijack that
Yeah,
shit. Like,
I mean that's a lot. That's a lot of the commentary is that Skynet's own programming is limited by our own human. It's limited by our own human error. It goes beyond it, but it's also limited by it. So it's like
Skynet's programming is
its scope is as limited as the people who designed it is the thing.
Skynet's. Here's what I think it is. Skynet's programming is limited by plot convenience, and so it has to.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So speaking of that, do you want to talk about the second episode because it fits very nicely into
No, it
talking
doesn't.
about Sky?
The third episode fits very nice.
Fuck. What's the second
The
one?
second episode is the weather one, which we already talked a little. I
Oh.
don't have a ton to say about it because the only thing
We already covered a lot of
the
it,
only thing that
so
really got me in that episode was the Windsor hum. It's
yeah.
interesting that that was the first time you ever heard of Chem Trails. That's like a big conspiracy nut thing
No, no, I'd never heard of
of
that.
recent years, really. Um,
But what I wanted to ask you was how much stock do you put in the weather manipulation?
I mean, do I buy that people would experiment with that shit? Of course.
How would they? Do you think they are?
Well, we have it on record that yeah, we did use cloud seeding in Vietnam to make it rain over there. Like that is a thing that we have.
I actually didn't. I see. I probably did know that, but I didn't know that's what it like. That was the full extent of it.
Yeah.
I knew that we experimented with artificial rain. I didn't know we created a cloud though. That's
It's
insane. We could do that in the
it's
1960s.
called cloud seeding. I mean, all you got to do, man, the right things done at the right altitude to cause a crowd. Okay, here's the definition of cloud seeding: the dropping of crystals into clouds to cause rain. That's all you got to do. So it's not that you're creating the
Right.
cloud. I misinterpreted that. It's that you're putting something in the cloud that causes it to rain. Um,
Right. Which is a massive point of contention in this episode. So there's actually something I'd like to cover. So this is one of the few that Joe Rogan had to bring an outside skeptic in on because, as he said, he was too dumb to figure out who was wrong.
yeah,
And he brings in a guy who had debunked chemtrails.
yeah.
Um, because it's hilarious. I love the moment where Joe Rogan goes on the computer of the guy whose lab he's interviewing him at and pulls up the site that debunked his research about
Yeah, and he's like, yeah,
chemtrails.
dude, you were testing mud, so of course there's a little bit of mud. And he's like, I will stand by this research. You're gonna, and he's standing by mud, basically, is what he's doing.
He's like, because he's like, oh, it's sludge. It's like, nah, it's mud, bro. Like, because the whole thing was, oh, there's water in it. And it's like, well, there's water in fucking mud.
Yeah,
Anyway, so I just thought that was hilarious. And then the ending where they go to the big fucking warehouse where that guy's got that giant array set up that apparently proves how it's possible to manipulate the weather using HARP.
yeah. Which, by the
And
way,
it looks real impressive.
that
But
episode had the potential to be my least favorite episode because I've heard the chemtrail shit before. I don't find it convincing at all in the slightest. I mean, it just doesn't grab me. And the whole time I was watching the like first like half of that episode, I was like, shit, it's Chem Trails the whole time. And then when they started talking about the harp shit, I was like, okay, this is infinitely more interesting.
Yeah, no, Harp
Um,
is fascinating. Harp is fascinating for the same reason that Area 51 is fascinating, because there's a legitimate, like, they refuse to tell us what's going on there.
yeah,
They
this
refuse.
is not a thing that we can debate the existence of. This is a thing that we know exists, and the big question is, well, what does it do? Uh,
Yeah, it's kind of like, if we didn't know what the Hadron Collider did. I mean, not as bad, because we know what the fucking Hadron Collider is and why it's dangerous.
yeah,
But with HARP, we don't know if it's dangerous,
yeah,
is the problem.
yeah.
And we don't know what it's doing, so we can't figure out if it's dangerous, or the public can't judge for itself if it's dangerous. You know, or outside scientists can't. It's just the government and the people that they hire to look into it. Um, Anyway, so I was about to go on a whole other tangent. I'm going to stop it and not because there's more to say.
But I'll just say what I
But
said before. The most interesting thing in this episode, the thing that got me, the thing that was actually like legitimately freaky about this episode, is the whole Windsor Hump thing. That is something that I've never heard of before, and just blew my mind.
yeah, but what did you think of the experiment at the end with the guy trying to prove that, like, that's how HARP
I
works?
don't even
And
really
just
understand like what he was trying to do. Honestly, his
no.
explanation of it was very. I don't know. It wasn't.
There's a lot of $1 million words, and none of them made any sense. None of them came together into a coherent thought,
Yeah.
and it was
Never
hilarious
once.
because then when the skeptic opened his mouth, perfect sense. I was immediately with him.
Never once, while he was explaining what the experiment was supposed to do, did I glean what the experiment was supposed to do. And if I don't
No,
even know what you're trying to do, then how can I possibly look at your experiment and be like, "Oh yeah, that's very convincing."
no, but that's the point though, because you're supposed to be wowed by how much he's thought about it and how complex the machine is, that you don't think to question it, because it's like, oh wow, it's so
All
impressive.
he's
I
doing
mean,
though
think
is
about it.
running.
That's kind of what happened with Rogan. He was kind of like, oh my god, it's so I'm sort of in awe of it. And then it took the guy who debunks stuff for a living to go, that's complete crap, and here's why.
Well, when you get
And
down to
then
why what he's actually doing, he's just running an electrical current through the thing and making the water.
he's just forcing fucking cloud. He's just forcing water vapor up.
He's just boiling water and turning it into vapor. I can do that same experiment on at my fucking on the oven. Fucking it's I don't
Now, I
understand
think his point
what
is that
was so compelling.
you can manipulate clouds and make them do whatever you want, was what it was supposed to prove,
And this is
using
something
the frequencies of HARP
and
was the idea.
this is something we know, but I don't understand how heating up a tray and making the water evaporate.
It wasn't supposed to be hot though. That's why it was bullshit.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to be hot.
Well, his
Because remember,
he tried
they
to trick.
go in there and they're like, that's burning hot. And he's like, oh, I don't think it's that hot. And it's like, well, it fucking
Well, he tried to
is.
trick him because he just pulled up the fucking register and was like, "See, it's very cool to the touch." And then Joe Rogan's like, "Yeah, but what about the box it was sitting on?" And then when they filled that, they was like, "Oh, it's fucking hot, man. You won't want that on your balls."
Oh, yeah, right, because he brings it out of the thing. He brings it up to them. He's like, oh, I'll take it out and bring it in and show it to you
Well,
guys.
see,
And
it's
then
cool.
they walk into the machine and they touch the box and he realizes he's been made.
Yeah, and at that point, he just sort of has to laugh it off and
No, he just has to go. I don't think it's that hot. And it's like, well, they seem to be reacting to it like it's pretty hot. I want to know how hot that thing is now.
yeah, honestly, uh, I mean, but what I don't understand is how is heating up a register that has water on it and causing that water to turn into vapor, again, something I can do on my oven, how is that supposed to be analogous to this array that uses radio waves to like do God knows what? Like, how is that?
Well, no, but again, it's because it's not supposed to be heating up the air. That it's bullshit.
Yeah,
It's
the
supposed to
question is,
just be radio. It's just supposed to be radio waves.
yeah, but he never gives like a decent explanation of what he's doing.
No, he doesn't at all. It's all
I
bullshit.
don't know. I had the thing pegged as shady from the beginning just because I couldn't follow what he was saying.
Well, I felt that because he said it. He's like, the second I walked into that warehouse, my bullshit meter started going off, and I'm like, well, okay, then mine certainly does too. Especially since he brought a skeptic in. Like, to be honest, I was watching all that and I was just like, I don't know, this all sounds really like conspiracy nonsense to me. It sounds like a bunch of people who think that the government is just out to get them,
Yeah,
and it's just
especially the
this
chemtrail stuff.
oh yeah, this big evil malevolent force that isn't just a bunch of people who can't agree on how to solve
I love how
problems.
the
Because it's like,
I love the girl who's like, chemicals were there, they exist. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so you were there and you saw that there were chemicals. That doesn't prove intent. That doesn't tell you what they were going to do with those chemicals. Do you have the PhD to tell me that spraying those specific chemicals in the air would cause any of these effects that you're claiming it's going to cause?
Do they have any effect on the weather whatsoever? And also, here's another thing. Where was the proof of storms popping up where these chemtrails were left?
Oh, they don't have proof. All they have is, well, you look at the weather patterns in recent years, man, and your Katrinas and your Andrews and shit, and
But no,
I don't
no,
know,
but
man.
they
It's
they were
really off
like
the scale, and we don't.
oh, we took time lapse photography and you see shit and it's like, oh, I thought we were gonna see a fucking storm
And
form
we're not.
after the plane passed. Nah, nothing like that.
Because you got to realize a lot of your people who believe in chemtrails are also your people who are staunchly against the concept of global warming being real, and so they have to come up with another explanation for why weather's going crazy, and they're like,
It can't be that technology is the problem. It has to be that who's using the technology is the problem. I think that gets said in that episode at one point.
yeah, they're against the concept of global warming being real, and so they have to have another explanation for why the weather's gone shitty. And they know that they'll look like idiots if they get up there and be like, "Well, it was foretold in the Bible." So instead, they're like, "Oh, it's the fucking government. They're spraying shit in the air." And at first, I didn't know if it was like Korea or what, but it turns out it's us. We're fucking killing our own people because that argument always makes sense. Uh,
I love that. It's like, oh, we're testing it on our own people. It's like our people are the like they don't take any shit. Like if you fucking like think about how taxes go. Like do you really think that our government is able to pull this kind of shit? Like our government is so inept as it is. It's like I find all these conspiracy theories
Americans
miraculous.
Americans are willing to riot over like a 10-cent increase on their hamburger.
There's no way that if there was any chance that this was real, that like we would stand for it for 2 seconds. Because I
I
think there'd be
remember
more
there was an
evidence that the weather
outrage
is
a few.
being.
I remember an outrage a few years ago because the price of McDonald's hamburgers had to go up like 10 cents because there was a food shortage or something. And it's like, what?
Yeah, exactly. You're right. It's like the littlest inconvenience. We're like, fuck you. So to even think that we're gonna kill you with the weather, and people were like, we're so dumb and such sheep that we just walk around like just mesmerized by this world the government's built for us. I think that people are a lot smarter and a lot more independent than these kind of people give them
I
credit
mean, come
for.
on, people are stupid, especially
No,
especially
no, no,
especially American people, but they don't put up
no.
with shit.
They're exactly though. They're dumb, but they're attentive. Does that make any sense? They're dumb, but they're attentive.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
they pick up on shit. They just might not know what it means. Like they.
That's what they used to say about me in school. No, I'm kidding. Ah,
That's what they wrote on your report card. Dumb but attentive.
no,
He shows up.
that was the poor other children.
Exactly. You were dumb and not attentive.
No, opposite problem.
Like a normal man.
Opposite problem. Smart but didn't give a shit.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I feel that. All right. I think that's enough to say about the weather, though. So you want to talk about the robot one now? Because
love how we got to on a podcast just talk about the weather for a while. That's
that was but we did that before we started recording too, so it's not even that weird.
like that's just like a joke. You know, people say, "What are we gonna like fucking sit around and talk about the weather?" Yeah, we will. Fucking on this
We
podcast.
just did for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, man. Chem trails. How do they work?
They don't is the idea.
Um.
uh
So after the weather control episode that was half stupid and half interesting, we go
yeah.
into possibly my favorite episode of the season.
Okay, interesting.
Because I'm all about this topic. Basically episode 3 is all about the idea of the singularity, which, if you're not familiar, is the concept of human beings and technology merging in the very near future. Um, Ray Kurzweil, the famous futurist who predicted such things as the internet and all that, he's all about this. He even goes so far as in this episode as to like drop a date that like in 2045, which is apparently a date that a lot of people are looking to, we're gonna have this capacity to like merge with our machines and shit. Um,
And I mean, you look at the smartphone age, it looks like it's going to happen or something like it.
yeah, and this episode is just fascinating. I love all the shit where they're talking about like the virtual reality shit is a little bit dumber because then it just goes into like the Matrix mode where they're like
Well, then it's just better video
we
games,
could
and
just
it's questionable how much better they are.
because like they do that whole Matrix thing where they're like we could be living in a situation
A situation.
we could,
We could be living in a situation. It's like we're living in a couple, Dylan.
no, we could be living in a simulation right now, and like Joe Rogan's just like whoa. That part of the episode is kind of weak, but all the stuff where they're talking about like robotics and the possibility, and like the part where Joe Rogan lifts that helicopter with his mind, quite literally.
Hmm.
Um, uh,
Yeah.
when he goes to that place and he meets that inventor who created that robot version of her partner, who's like pretty spot on human. Um,
Yeah, that was some freaky shit. Now I've seen that kind of stuff before, so that wasn't like new to
no,
me.
I've seen,
But
but I've mostly seen it in Japan. I was surprised anybody over.
yeah, no, I've seen it in Japan as well. I've seen it in Germany as
I
well.
was surprised that somebody
But
on this side of the pond made it. That good job.
exactly, I mean, but it was still, and it was pretty fucking creepy. Like she was having a conversation with him. Like it was.
Yeah.
I mean, not a fluid one. Like I don't want to give the thing too much credit. It sounded like a fucking weird talk box that was spewing some shit.
Well, that's
But
just because machines at this point in time don't
but
have
yeah,
very fluid like speaking patterns.
it's a bit it wasn't that it was unable to communicate, it's that it lacked the tools to communicate well.
Mm. But I think it was very apparent that the thing was coming out with its own answers, which is
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, it was a human mind. Like you hear the way he like she describes it. um she's just like, it has a whole bunch of stuff in its head just like us, and it pulls out different stuff based on the situation just like we do. Its thinking is very very similar to the way people do, and the difference between the two is almost is it's getting to the point where it's going to be negligible, and that's what the episode is about.
yeah.
It's about how negligible can it be, what's the road there, and should we allow it to get that far. And god, the interview with that creepy British dude is fucking weird.
What British dude?
Or whatever. No, he's not British. I think he's German. That guy who runs the weird
Oh,
billionaire who wants to turn himself into a god.
he's Russian. He's Dmitry Etskov is his name.
Oh, okay, my bad. I didn't know his name.
I
So
feel
that's
like
why. See,
Joe
if I would have
Rogan.
heard, if I would have heard that name, I would have fucking.
I think Joe Rogan kind of took took that quote and kind of ran with it a little bit, though. To be fair,
Oh
I
yeah, no.
feel
I
like
mean, he only talked to him for 15 minutes, and he said like two
I feel like
words.
the guy that was. See, Joe Rogan makes it out after that interview like the guy wants to be a god. What he actually said was that the idea is to progress humanity to the point where we become, more godlike beings. It wasn't him straight up saying, "I will be God." Wah ha. He's not like a comic book villain, which is kind of what.
No, and also Joe
Yeah.
Rogan's the one who's like, "Do you want to be a god?" Didn't he ask him that?
Yeah, I mean, and his answer to the question was basically he wants to be able to extend human life to the point where it becomes a person's decision when they expire. You want to be around for a couple hundred years? Cool, hang out, chill. Uh,
Do you think that there was a bit of like, did you feel at all that Joe Rogan was kind of making that guy out to seem a little weirder than he really was?
yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
it was edited in such a way where it's like it opened on. It was one of the first things where, I mean, it was I get it because it was definitely weird, where it opened on like Joe sitting by himself, and then it was like he were looking off to the side, and it's like some girl talking to, the Russian billionaire,
And he's just like,
and he's like, how much time do you have? And it's like, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and he's like, okay, I'll give him 15. And it was a little weird. I'm glad that I saw that because that was weird. But it felt like he was trying to paint the guy out to be like this weird, creepy, out of
and
touch
that's what I'm talking
supervillain.
about the God quote.
Yeah,
He takes the what's clearly a metaphorical statement. It's he's comparing, what, and I don't even think that like God, because people tend to think like Judeo-Christian God. I think he's more speaking of like,
no, I think he's talking more like the traditional Greek
yeah, he's
gods,
more talking like in that realm. So let's all
power over nature. Yeah,
let's all get to where we understand exactly what the guy was saying, because
I
I
agree.
think that
No, I'm with
Rogan
you.
definitely takes that quote and kind of runs with it a little too far, to the point where I was like, you're. I mean, I get it. Like, I get that you, Joe Rogan, are personally creeped out by the whole idea of humans and machines. Like,
And it's kind of funny to play it up that way, but it's not. I felt like they were making the guy seem worse than he was, and that guy seemed so nervous in the interview
yeah,
too.
yeah. And to be honest, he seemed like a perfectly, you know, fine gentleman who just wanted to
But he
use his money
sounded
for
weird.
reasons.
Exactly, and he said, but he also, and I don't think it was his fault. He sounded weirded out by the circumstances, and I think part of the reason was he was like, "These guys are gonna make me out to seem like a fucking lunatic."
Yeah, and I mean, I've never even heard of the guy before. I don't think he's ever.
Me neither.
He's probably not given very many, if any, interviews in the past, honestly. So he seemed like he was sort of not familiar with how to conduct himself in an interview. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I think he was nervous. I don't know. It seemed I'm with you though. I think they painted him out to be a bit of a. They kind of painted him out to be a target. You know, they chose him as a target for as like because he becomes a bit of like a villain at that point. You're right, where it's like they talk to the other guy and they're talking about how he kind of has to be stopped in
Like
his pursuing this
he
idea.
brings him up several times throughout the episode, like, we saw a Russian billionaire who wants to be a god, and I'm like, Rogan, I love you, man, but you're making him out to be fucking Lex Luthor, when in reality, he's a guy funding a research.
He's more of a Tony Stark. Like he's a futurist kind of like he's like
Yeah,
this is the world I see in this time, and I would like to get there. Now
he's
listen,
a guy.
I find the guy creepy
He's a guy
for different
funding a research
reasons.
initiative. Okay, that's all.
I know, but I find him creepy because of like the wording of some of the fucking pamphlets and like the presentation of it.
Yeah,
Like it's all super ethereal and like it looks a bit like a cult to me. Like that's why I don't. That's why I'm not about it. But I think
and to be fair,
Joe Rogan
again,
looked at
and
that.
another thing you got to
Yeah.
keep in mind, again, to be fair, is that the guy's foreign. His sensibilities are a bit different.
No, fair
Um,
enough. But I think that Rogan picked those two elements out. He's Russian, and there's like this weird ethereal quality to what he's doing, and ran with it. And a bit of the accuracy of it got lost in the shuffle. And Dylan, how much do you think that this show suffered from that? Because a lot of these shows are broken by that element of the way the show is edited and the way it's presented is made to misconstrue the facts to the point where everything that they say becomes questionable because of the presentation. Did you
there's
think it
only
dipped, did it dip into that for you based on that on that element of it, or did you just kind of take that as like
there are only
they were making a joke out of this guy and they're just gonna move on?
there are only two times that I think it becomes a legitimate problem. One being this Demetrius Ichkov guy. I think that Rogan, like I was saying, ran way too far with that one little quote that the guy said. I think he did that. He overblew that idea. I think.
I think he was pissed he only talked to him for 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was a 15-minute conversation. He didn't say much to the guy, and the guy makes one little comment, comparing where he sees the future of humanity going to, to gods. Not even talking about like the all-powerful type of god, like, but talking about like more of like, like we were talking about, more of a. I mean, let's be honest. Using the word gods as a metaphor has become very in fashion of late. Um,
Oh no, that's true. And you know what else? I think that Joe Rogan may be a bit personally biased against this guy. Because you got to think about, and this is getting a little deeper maybe than we should. I mean, this is just about as deep as I think we should be getting. Because I just listened to that podcast with Tim and Kevin Smith before I started to get on here.
because I get the feeling that Rogan is.
He's very like, okay, I'm gonna give you a quote, not a direct quote because I can't remember the exact wording, but he says something to the effect in the podcast of in the podcast that I listened to of there is no disconnect between the body and mind. They are two dependent parts of the same whole. Your mind is a rider in your body, and they are both completely dependent upon each other. You know, whatever happens to your body is reflected in your mind. Your mental state is dependent about what's going on with your body, which is true.
Yes, that's all
But
very
he
true.
seems,
But
but he seems to be very much like a kind of guy who's like, you work on your body to work on your mind. And I think the idea of your mind being this thing that you can put into another body and be basically the same thing is the kind of thing that he doesn't like and scares him, and
yeah,
he isn't all about for that reason. Did you get that
that's
sense?
definitely the problem with this episode. I said before that I think episode 6 was definitely the episode that you could tell he was the most skeptical about. This is the episode that I think he's definitely the most skeeved out about. Like this is.
Do you think it's the most like agenda driven he gets, kind of?
Yeah,
But I
of
think
all
the
the
weather
topics.
one was also. I think the weather one was also very agenda driven, though.
No, because I didn't get that same sense in that episode. I got the sense he's.
Not the same. I think it's lesser, but you still get the sense of like he clearly has made up his mind that this is unusual, this rash of strange weather,
Yeah,
and he wants to find out what's going on. So it's not to the extent of he already knows what's up. He doesn't like it. It's well, I mean, yes, but like he doesn't know
in
what's
this
up
case though,
in
it's
the
more of a
weather.
problem because
It's not a paranormal thing. It's not a thing that he's proving. It's a thing that he's exploring.
in this case, it's him talking about a subject that it seems to me that he is very biased in. Um,
I
it
agree. I
seems to
agree.
me that he is personally anti this idea of
Oh, definitely. You can tell that clearly by the end,
the
bro.
idea of
He's
humanity
talking to.
and machinery melding into a super race. And I can't get behind. I'm all about becoming a cyborg in the future.
I don't want to be that, But I can't begrudge people who want to do that to themselves. Like that kind of world becomes a problem when they're forcing that on other people. Here's what you don't
I
want,
don't
Dylan.
want
Here's
I don't want a Cyberman or a Borg scenario, but if I could fuck.
No, you don't want the RoboCop. Like this is the you don't want RoboCop to be a thing. You don't want some dead guy to have, or somebody who's about to die, have their consciousness uploaded to a robotic body. You fuck with their memories, and then you put them on the street as a weapon. Like no, you don't. That's the world that could lead to though, and that's where I'm with him. But at the same time, you can't make these people who are exploring a very, very like worth exploring scientific idea just because it skeeves you out that they don't think they need their bodies to function. And listen, I'm with them.
Also,
I don't think it works in the same way that they think it's gonna work, where it's like, oh, you're just a person in a robot body. Nah, you need the physical stimuli of a body to work right as a person. Like I do agree that there is the potential to just have a race of psychopaths because you don't have that physical stimuli.
uh
Your thoughts aren't going to work the same way, is what I'm saying. Um, so, but you know what though? It's like there are people with so many ailments and disabilities who could be benefited by this kind of research, and I think that he's missing a lot of that. Now he
yeah,
does show that. He shows the guy in the wheelchair who puts on that robot
I
suit.
think it's totally admirable. The one thing that Dmitry Iskov did say, that the idea of a person being able to live as long as they want to live. Maybe disease would have taken them out of the picture early, but they want to, be Dr. Wheelo for a few years. Let them be Dr. Wheelo is all I'm saying.
But I do think that there is certainly a danger to your life is a thing that you can. I think he is exploring and is very aware of the danger that is life becomes a thing that can be bought and sold as a commodity, or the extension of life can be. I think that's a world that scares him. That's a world that scares me. I don't know if I want to live in that world, but I can't. It's not my decision to paint people who want that as evil. I mean, I can. I just don't think it's valid. I don't think everybody who wants to put their brain on a computer chip and put it in a robot body. Or I mean, that's the other thing too. That's not even the definitive like extent of
or,
this. Like
or
it's not
upload their
definitive.
mind into an antiquated computer bank that Captain America will discover before going off to fight the newly formed Hydra.
I mean, that's what I want. That's what I want. I want my fucking brain to be put on terabytes of computer banks from the 1970s.
Yes, and never
But
uploaded into a new. Why did he never upgrade? He lives
I
in
don't.
the world of iPods. He never thought, hey, can you like download me into maybe a
Well, no, because
sexier body? Maybe carry me around in your fucking pocket as a calculator.
Well, I mean that whole base was abandoned, so who knows what the deal was.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the idea was that Hydra had no more use for him.
Yeah, they sort of just left him there.
I think that was the idea.
Couldn't,
But
wouldn't have been smarter of them at that point to destroy him so that he couldn't.
I agree. I don't know. That's a weird hole in that movie now that I'm thinking about. What the hell was the deal with that?
I don't know.
I love the Winter Soldier. Damn it, Dylan, you're making me have questions about the Winter Soldier.
Ah,
Fuck.
there's no movie without plot holes.
No, that's true. That's true. The Dark Knight for one. Just talk about good superhero movies for a second. Anyway, um, so yeah, I agree. I think that was certainly his most biased one, but we're pretty far in, so I don't move on then from railing on Joe Rogan's anti machinist philosophies.
Yes. Well, let me think. Was there anything else very interesting that they went over in that episode? Oh, what did you think about? Because this is definitely something that I see coming in the near future, and that I'm very excited about. What did you think of the little
Mm.
demo of him controlling a helicopter with his mind? I'm loving the mind control technology, or not mind control technology. That sounds like technology to control.
That sounds great.
No, remote control technology that you actually control with your mind. I should be more specific. I'm
I was unimpressed by it because all it did was fly up into the ceiling and just crash back
I
down.
mean, it's very rudimentary at this stage, obviously, but you got to think about the potential there, man.
No. It's cool, but it's just I don't know.
That
I
machine,
want to see it.
that machine read his mind and responded to his naked werewolf thoughts, man.
That was bizarre. I also loved how they showed imagery.
Few
Um,
more years of
although
development on that, and next thing you know, you got a phone that calls people, and all you got to do is think, like, hey, call this person in your head, and it's like, K.
that was another potential issue I had with the show. I didn't like how they did joke cutaways because I found that very distracting from like the point. Like to me, they should have left like all of the comedy as Joe improvising either on the spot or in his little video interviews later. But there's this moment in the Alien episode where they're talking about like, oh, you can get an alien girl to come out and have sex with you, and they show like a picture of a girl, like a sexy girl in an alien
Yeah.
costume, and I'm like, what's the point? Like, it's distracting. Like I was watching this interview, and now all of a sudden it's a fucking like meme. It's like a fucking comedy video on the internet. Like, I don't know. This isn't what I was here to see. I get that this show is, partially for,
Comedy.
it's partially supposed to be a comedy,
Yeah.
but
It's a
yeah,
comedic bent.
yeah,
It's a paranormal investigation show through a comedic lens, basically.
it's kind of a it's not a parody of paranormal shows. It's a funny version of a serious paranormal show,
Yeah.
because it takes itself seriously, but it's also funny.
And it would be impossible not to be with Joe Rogan as your host.
No, of course not. Yeah, I mean that's why you get a guy like Joe Rogan to do this. You get people take it more seriously because he's not being serious about it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
You gotta get a guy who infuses his own personality into the project so that it doesn't become a carbon copy of fucking Ghost Adventures or whatever.
Definitely, definitely. So I just thought that the inclusion of that was too much
Yeah.
in that direction. You know,
I can't think of
I just thought it was
I
distracting.
can't think of anything else in the robot episode that bears mentioning. It was just it might have been my favorite episode of the season just because I'm very fascinated by all of that.
Fair enough.
Um,
I'll be honest with you, man. I had a toss up between the weather one and the Bigfoot one. Like, they were both really solid
I knew the
episodes.
Bigfoot one would be big for you.
Well, yeah, oh yes. But the weather, I'm with you. I was creeped out by the weather one though. So I really took to that one as
That
well.
fucking hum. Everything else in that episode I've heard before. I've heard of HARP, and I know about all the mystery around it. I've heard of fucking the Chem Trail thing, but that Windsor hum, man, that got to me. I was like, whoa.
No, no, the Windsor hum fucked with me too. I'm with you.
Anytime you're introduced
Definitely.
to a new paranormal concept for the first time, it's like, whoa, what is that? You know?
Yeah, no, especially since there's video of it. Like, anything paranormal that there's video of, instantly I'm like, okay, what?
And that was another thing very similar to the Sasquatch thing, where it was like everyone describes the exact same sound.
Exactly. It's a consistent description of what's going on, and that's how you know there's more validity to it.
Yeah.
It's not a bunch of people making shit up in their own head, you know?
More interestingly, it doesn't sound like something, natural. It sounds like something that would be man-made. It sounds like a sort of sound that one would expect to come from technology.
It doesn't sound like a skyquake, no.
Yeah, because a skyquake is just like a vague noise. This
It's
is
like thunder. It's like thunder, right?
Yeah, this is more of like a consistent like whum, 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 like a fucking flying saucer.
It's like
Maybe this is the evidence that was missing from the flying saucer episode. Rogan, you drew the wrong conclusion, man. It's not HARP. It's
it's
Demalians.
like you know what it sounds like? It sounds like when you take like a hollow metal tube and you like swing it, or like you know what I'm talking about? It's like when
Yeah,
you just move it really quickly, it'll make that sound like that. Wum, 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 wum,
you
wum, wum,
can
wum.
you can swing like pretty much any stick and get a similar effect. But the
Yeah.
hollow
So maybe it's a guy in front of a camera doing that a
metal,
couple times, but
the really interesting idea that they mention is that they think it's based at Zug Island, but it seems to get stronger the farther away from Zug Island you get, which is interesting. Um,
although I thought it was
apparently it
bullshit when
has
it's like
apparently
I texted this girl. There's a mild hum going on right now. Conveniently, that you're out here, Mr. Rogan, and he's like, I don't hear anything, man.
yeah. But then
Like,
like they bought back a little validity because he was talking about because of the type of sound wave it is, it actually gets stronger the farther away from it you are. And Joe like looks at his sound guy who's obviously trained in all this shit, and he's like, "Is that possible?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, possibly." He's like, "There are sounds like that." So it's like,
but to the point where you wouldn't be able to hear it at all, though. I don't know. I find that a little bit suspect.
yeah, I don't know.
I think you'd feel something because you feel it more, and it's like, I don't know. I get that it's possible, but I don't know. Even still, you'd think that they would have been then like, let's go away from the island, like let's go into the suburbs and walk around for a while and see if you feel it, right?
Yeah, and then Rogan's like, "I'll tell you one thing, it smells fucking gnarly out here." I was like, "All right, well,
He was just
maybe
like,
it's them chemtrails,
I
man."
don't know,
Maybe it's
I don't know what's going on here. It's disgusting. It smells weird. The fire's freaking me out. Like he was like, it's an off-putting place. So who knows?
yeah.
But what was after the robot one? I forget.
Episode 4 is the pandemic episode, the whole superbug thing.
Right,
Nothing
the
too,
bunk, the Vista bunker or whatever,
nothing.
or Vivos bunker.
Vivos,
Excuse me.
yeah. The only two, nothing in that episode too terribly new to me. Nothing that I hadn't heard of,
No, it's your typical like zombie conspiracy shit.
except for the do-it-yourself bioengineers. That was something I was vaguely aware of, but not to the extent that it is a real thing.
It was also like crazy how he pointed out those like backdoor labs and shit where it's like you can just walk in and do whatever kind of genetic research you want
Yeah.
and not be supervised. Like I'm like, that's fucked. Like that was some shady business where the doors open and the walls were like made of cardboard and
Well, the
shit.
one moment where the
Like
guy's like, we can't stop people from doing harm in places like these. We just sort of have to hope that they don't. I was like, oh, so we're fucked, is what you're saying.
exactly. That's like at that point, yeah. It's like just if we're gonna be fucked over, we have to be fucked over. We'll deal with it
And I get
afterwards.
what
It's
he's
like, well, if you don't have to,
I
yeah,
get what
I
he's
get what he's
saying.
saying too.
It's not
But fuck him.
it's not workable to try and prevent people from doing this. I understand what he's saying, and all he's saying is that all he can do is know that at his lab they're doing like good shit, and
But it's like that's an excuse.
and
Like it's like you can still do the effort. Like I want a written account of everything you do in this lab. Like that's what most places do. It's like I want a written record of everything you did, which can be misconstrued, but at the very least you're trying, right?
yeah, and I like how he points out that this can be done for like a couple thousand. Like if I had a couple $1,000s on me and like a big enough basement, I could build one of these fucking labs, man.
Well, you can buy stuff like, like fucking commercially, and you can use it to fucking make a superbug, like in theory. So
Yeah, yeah,
you can buy some yeast and some bleach and fucking make the next fucking like rage virus. Like it's crazy, dude.
yeah.
Um, it's nuts. But yeah, nothing too crazy in that one either. Like the threat of some kind of disease that can wipe out the entire planet. That's always on everybody's doorstep.
Yeah.
What I thought was a bit creepier was the guy who they got that worked for the Soviet Union that was like, oh yeah, we have fucking thousands and tons of biological
The
weapons,
guy who was
which I
like,
kind of figured.
we had trenches of anthrax, and I'm like, Jesus, trenches?
Yeah.
Who needs trenches of anthrax? I think
Who needs trenches of anything, bro?
I think
Trenches are horrible. You ever seen trench foot? It's
I
terrible.
think one trench of anthrax probably enough to kill all your enemies.
That's all the anthrax you'll ever need.
Let's not go overboard. I have a very small amount of anthrax in comparison to that, and it does me just fine, you know. Uh,
I mean, how much do you really need, Dylan?
I mean, really, honestly,
How much anthrax is too much anthrax?
two capfuls.
Indeed. What did you think of the bunker guy who's like, if anybody's gonna be in charge, it's me. I don't know.
He's like, so who gets to make the decision of like who lives and who dies and shit? And he's like, the director. So you? Well, I don't know. I might be. We'll just see how that goes, you know.
How look? That sounded so like not planned out either.
And Rogan was like, which is code for him. He's the guy in charge.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Duncan brought that up. He's like, "Oh, so you mean you?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe not me." It's like, not you.
The guy's like,
So
I might be the director at that time. I do not know. At this time, I am.
it's like, yeah, like, why didn't he just go? Well, I mean, I'm in charge, so
I'm,
I guess me.
I mean, I'm the director. I mean, yeah, it goes without.
Or he could have said the fucking like normal person thing and gone like, well, we vote and be a committee because that's what it should be. That's the way you would run something like that unless you wanted like a fucking Fallout 3 overseer type of situation where people are shooting each other in the face. Like you don't want that. That's a problem, as they say.
Like how he says, the one good thing about a pandemic is it won't destroy like the land and the animals and shit. And so after the rest of humanity's dead,
Which, by the way, isn't necessarily true.
we're just gonna come out and repopulate. Woo!
Yeah, no, he was a bit freaky. I also loved how like he had a golf shirt on with the logo of the place on it. Like that was some weird shit.
Also, it's also hilarious that the place was still in development. So he's like, yeah, this is where the hot tub's gonna be, and this is where like the pool tables are gonna be, and all this shit. And then he takes the guy on a tour, and
And it's just creepy fucking mines.
all they have so far is caves. I almost feel like all of that is just like a trick to like get his members to be like, yeah, we're gonna have all this cool shit here, and then they get there at the end of the world, and it's just caves. He's like, now you are all my bitches. Like,
Because I also love how he's you open on the because I didn't even like consider that none of that stuff was built yet. When I saw that picture of like the the top down view of what the place was supposed to look like, I was like, oh, so all that's there. That's crazy. That's overkill. They're
yeah,
talking to this guy
at
because
that
he's weird and creepy for building all that
at
shit.
that point, I was like, where do I buy a membership, man? I wanna spend the end of the world in a hot tub. I'm down for that.
And at that point, he goes, "Oh, if you buy up a slot, you'll have a place to go at the end of the world. One less thing you have to worry about."
Yeah,
And it's like, "Oh, so I bought up a place to park my RV in this creepy mine. Great,
yeah, but
thanks."
there's a hot tub. I mean, let's be fair.
Oh, good. No, it's not even built yet. The hot tub isn't built yet,
There's gonna
Dylan.
be a hot tub, man. It's part of the.
But what if the pandemic happens tomorrow? I mean, this was 3 years ago, so maybe the Vivos underground mine is a bit more
Yeah,
developed.
I would love to go there now and see what all's there. You know.
I see. My question is, what happened to all these people and shit and places and conspiracy stuff after this show aired? Is my question.
Yeah, I want to know.
Do you
Like,
think part of that? Do you think part of why it never
did
got
that
picked up for
man?
another?
Did that man find more Bigfoot shit? Did the Windsor Hum ever get properly investigated?
Did the Windsor hum ever hum again?
Mm, mm, mm. Did Joe Rogan truly question everything?
Did everything question Joe Rogan?
My God.
These are the questions you got to ask yourself, Dylan. But what was after the pandemic
Demons
then?
from Outer Space question Joe Rogan. Episode 5 was shit, fuck, shit, fuck, shit, fuck. What was it?
I think that one was
Oh, that's the
aliens.
alien one. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we talked about that a lot already. There's not really much
We
else to
talked about
say.
that. I mean, it's.
What's your stance on UFOs, though, Dylan?
I mean,
First things first, do you believe in the possibility of alien life? Let's start off with that obvious
I mean,
question.
obviously, I think
Yeah, of course,
I
right?
think anyone who discounts that at this point with what we currently
They're an idiot.
is just an idiot. I mean, maybe we
Yeah,
come up with some evidence in the future that points to the fact that oh no, we might actually be alone in the universe. Then fine. At that point, I'll be like, okay, then yeah, no aliens. But at this moment, it just seems statistically impossible that there's not.
I agree.
I mean, yes, the conditions for life as we know it, quote unquote, to exist are very specific. But then again, the universe is so vast that the idea that those specific conditions couldn't be repeated in a few corners. um,
Exactly. No, it's just it's insane. I mean, there's also so many different theories as to the history of our universe and the potential for it to already have intelligent life. It's just I mean, but the intelligent life is the
I'm
question.
fairly
Do
confident.
you believe
So I'm
in do you
fairly
believe in
confident.
intelligent life?
Fairly confident that there is life on other planets. The question of whether or not it's intelligent, at that point, we just don't have enough information. I don't.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
don't have any fucking way of knowing if these people on these other planets, if they even are people of any shape or form that we might recognize.
Even if they're intelligent life, they might not even be like qualifiable as people. Like there's all kinds of theories as to like, well, our basis of life is so limited by what we know on our
Yeah,
own
there are all
planet that
these.
who knows how life might evolve another planet. Like
There are
Stephen
tons of
Hawking
great
talks about how he's
episodes.
like there could be giant plumes of gas that are living beings and they could be intelligent
Yeah,
and we would have no idea that they were even
we
alive.
don't know. We don't. There are great episodes of Star Trek all about that. There's a episode in the original series where they find a creature that's like burrows underground and like its body is like composed of silicone and shit. And they're like, is that even possible? And then like they go into like, well, I mean, not by the our definition of life, but that's pretty fucking limited. Like,
But I would say the people on Star Trek should be like, anything is possible, man. We went to a planet that looked like the 60s into a planet that looks like the
well, by the
40s.
time you get to TNG, they're like, yeah, I mean, anything's possible at this point. But in TOS, they were still trying to like
They were still exploring the universe and
the
everything,
series
yeah.
was still trying to say like, I mean, as far as we know, that's not possible, but maybe it is. That's just a thing that the writing happened.
How do they explain, like, those times where they go to planets that look like periods in Earth's history? Like, that's so fucking weird.
It's just the idea is just that it's people evolving along the same lines that humans evolved, and as fucking weird as it is, as vast as the universe is, it kind of seems like a likelihood at this
But
point.
how did they develop this? I guess they could develop the same language, I
I mean,
suppose,
when
and
you
the
really
same
look at what
culture.
if you really look at what the definition of the word infinite is, if the universe is truly infinite, then it is not at all unlikely that there is some planet out there right now that
But all those planets have to be exactly like Earth, though, is the thing. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
well,
They have to be a legit copy of the planet Earth. Otherwise, why would the countries evolve? Why would the everything? You know,
yeah,
it's a
it
coincidence
seems
certainly.
incredibly unlikely by our standards. But again, our standards are pretty fucking limited. So
That's true. No, you are right.
I don't
Um,
know. But the point I'm trying to get at is
yeah. Well, I've been like hammering you with a whole bunch of mini questions. So just say the general gist.
is there life in the vastness of space? I'm almost positive. Is it intelligent in any way? I don't know. Is it capable of space travel? I don't fucking know. Have they ever been here? Again, I don't fucking know. Um,
What's your opinion though of the whole
will we
UFO
ever?
culture and have we ever been visited and all that?
I don't fucking know, man. I've never seen anything in my pickup. I don't. I don't have that life.
That's how you figure it out, right? It's what have you seen in your pickup, Dylan?
I don't have that life experience. I don't even have pickup, honestly. Uh,
That's my least. That's the thing I'm the most ashamed of.
yeah, lack of pickup. I mean, there we go.
Lack of J.
Right, yeah, the lack of
Ain't got none.
lack of redneck J, also known as pickup.
Uh, so what? Question being, is there any UFO evidence that you've seen or heard of that makes you go, well, maybe?
Um,
I have. I certainly have.
I don't know. All the evidence I've seen is both. Anytime you find evidence that's actually compelling, there's also really compelling reasons that it could be fake.
But it's like what I said earlier about it. It's also like up in the air and vague that you can't prove it, but you know what? I mean, you can't disprove it, but you can't prove it. Is what is where it all comes down to. It's so vague and so up to interpretation that, well, yeah, sure, why not? Of course, in a limitless universe, why the fuck not? But what are you giving me? What are you giving me to convince me? Your story? Well, you know what, man? I'm a fucking writer. I'll tell you a better story. Fuck you.
Yeah, yeah,
Probably not.
yeah.
I probably not though.
Now you won't tell
I
them a
probably
better story. You'll start to
not.
tell them a better story, but then you'll never finish it after two.
We'll stop 2 issues in. Yeah,
Um,
indeed.
and then years later you'll make a video about the story you were going to tell that man.
So complicated. But I'm trying to think of the most compelling UFO evidence I've ever heard. Probably the one that freaked me out the most
until
was
the
a
day
bunch.
that they like legit show up and either go all Independence Day on us or do the whole Vulcan thing, come out of the ship and be like, "We are your friends." We're not gonna fucking know.
I love the Kevin Smith did a podcast once where he was like, I know it always comes back to Kevin Smith doing a podcast, but there was a podcast he did
It
once.
does always come back to Kevin Smith doing a podcast. Our podcast sometimes, thanks to you, turns into like degrees of separation from Kevin Smith. You know,
Oh, certainly,
like
yeah.
people play like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. This show's like degrees of Kevin Smith.
I haven't met Kevin Smith yet. I've been in the same room as him, but I've never met him. So one day it's gonna happen. We're gonna make those degrees shorter.
Oh,
We're gonna make them smaller.
that's your plan. One day we're gonna meet Kevin Smith, and then like
No, one day I will. You fuck you. I got closer than you did, Dylan. I was in the same room as him. What could you say?
I fucking I don't know, man. I
Have you ever seen Clerks?
have I ever seen Clerks? No.
Watch Clerks. It's good. Anyway, so but I was listening to him do a podcast and he talked about how like he was like what I want to happen is I want George W. Bush. This is when he was still president. This is a long time ago. He was like I want George W. Bush to come out with a greasy paper McDonald's bag and pull a severed alien head out of it, and that's how we reveal aliens to the world.
Yeah, I mean,
Just
I'll go for
just
that.
a alien with the eyes rolled back and the fucking tongue sticking out.
I could
That's how he wanted it to happen.
I could go for that.
But okay. I think I'm actually more cynical about aliens than you are. I kind of don't think they visited us. I don't think that there's not only do I don't think there's enough physical evidence. I don't think it really like I don't think what they're doing has ever been explained to me in such a way where I really buy it. I get the theories as to why
By more cynical on it than me, what you actually mean is you actually have an opinion on it, whereas I'm like, I don't fucking know.
well but I'm more cynical. It's like I don't even know if I believe in the possibility of it. Like I just don't see what they're doing as in any way logical. Like they come in, they pick up a few people, and they put us back. Like that's the thing that I'm like, well, why do they put us back so they can monitor us? Well,
Well, don't you think it's
I
entirely
guess.
possible that if a species is like as far and away advanced from us as we are from the animals that we find on our own planet, that they might treat us in a similar fashion to we
No, they definitely would,
that they would
but
study us in the same fashion that we study the animals on our planet.
I
It is
absolutely
not
do.
entirely uncommon to capture an animal and like tag it with something and then send it back out into the wild. I don't find that the idea of aliens doing that to people in and of
I
its
just, I just, I want to know why. Is it for science or like, is it for? I want to see like I want to see
presumably
some kind of logic. But
if you buy into the stories that people tell about what aliens have done to them, And this is again, if we just assume that yes, they visit Earth and that they've actually abducted these people, if you buy into those stories, then I have to draw the conclusion that it's a scientific study of humankind, because what else would it be, you know?
I agree, but I'm just saying like it's so inconsistent though. Like with the different reports, they're just like, oh, they did this to me, they impregnated me. Like there's so many. That's one thing
The
too. It's
only
like they
thing that I find,
when they're impregnating themselves when they're getting impregnated with aliens, I'm like, they're shit scientists then, because that's not what you do. You don't send your fucking impregnated with your own seed out into the wild to see how it fucks up the ecosystem. No,
maybe that's not how you,
you maintain the ecosystem so you can study it.
maybe that's not how you do science, Bill. But I'll tell you,
No,
I
that's probably how I do science, and that's why it's bad.
I spent some time in the wild, studying monkeys and
Although you had to think for a second, you're like, what animal can I say that'll make me sound less creepy? Oh, I know, monkeys.
what monkey could what monkey what animal what species could I like conceivably fuck and send out into the wild carrying my own seed? I mean, AIDS had to get started somehow. That's all I'm saying.
And
Uh,
I'm just saying that Dylan is the one who started it before he was born.
you don't buy that whole somebody cut their finger while chopping monkey meat story, do you? Fucking
Not certainly not. I saw Ricky Gervais's stand-up bit about it. I don't buy it.
no. Yeah, he's so right about it in that bit though.
He really is though. He's like, that's what I would tell a doctor too.
If you were fucking a monkey and someone was like, "That's so weird. You got this like tropical disease that people only find in monkeys. How did that happen?" Or you'd be like, and it's like sexually transmitted. How did that happen? You'd be like, I was chopping monkey
Well, I
meat,
was
man.
chopping up chimp meat. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's illegal, but I was chopping up some chimp meat and I cut my finger, man, and like my blood.
I just love the way he goes. He's like, he was chopping up chimp meat and he cut his finger, and well, I bet that's what I would tell people as well.
Yeah, fucking love Ricky Gervais. Um,
He's great. And I actually I want to see if you find this accurate.
there's only
I
one. There's
just
only one
I,
possible thing that I think could potentially be compelling as to the idea of aliens visiting Earth. Okay.
oh, okay, go for it. Back to the topic.
As you know, the reason that this is even like a thing in the popular zeitgeist of America is that back in the day, like in the 50s, this era, if I'm remembering correctly,
40s.
40s, back in the 40s, there was a rash of UFO sightings.
Yeah, right after World War II, it started. Yeah.
Tons of tons of UFO sightings. And
And guess what? It followed.
yeah, and I mean,
And if what you're saying is what's going on with the whole scientific study thing, that makes a lot of
well,
sense for why they
and
would
here's the
pick
other
it
thing.
from.
I think a lot of that is like hysteria at that point. Like
Yeah, no,
all these
definitely.
people, like the more people say that they've seen something, the more it picks up steam, and there are more people saying, "Oh, I think I saw it too." And then you get the people who are intentionally being false and saying, "Oh yeah, I saw that thing. I want my 15 minutes of fame." So I think a ton of that is like just a snowball effect, but it had to start from somewhere. And there's entirely possible that whoever started that rash of UFO sightings, whatever that first sighting was, it is entirely possible that because there's no big media storm at that point. There's not them looking at what's going on around them and saying, "Oh yeah, me too." At that point, they had to have experienced something. Is it what they interpreted it as? I don't fucking know.
I,
But they had to have seen something. That first sighting I'm talking about. The first sighting had to have been,
I hear you. No, I'm with
it
you.
had to be a person having a legitimate experience, because there's no way it could be them like buying into media hype, because there would have been no media hype at that point.
See, I think what makes me just go where I'm like, I don't even know if I believe in the possibility of it. I think it's just the way people word it that bugs me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I think it's just the syntax, to go back to
If
that's
more if
used.
more people dropped their pickup into the story, then we would buy it. I mean,
You know, if everybody opened their story with "so I was in my pickup,"
yeah. Just
I would buy it in a second. I would just be instantly sold.
doesn't that just
No,
lend credibility to the whole thing? I mean,
it's just the no, it does not at all, and I'll tell you why. Because it's just the vague, floaty, fluffy nature of like, well, I had an experience with lights and
yeah.
everything. It's like just it's the lights flying by and doing
And that's
weird
the
shit in the
current,
sky. It's like it's space, man. It's fucking weird.
and
Who knows what's going on?
and that's just the nature of the current UFO subculture.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but my whole thing, and the one thing that I can possibly look at as a sign of like maybe there's something to this, is that subculture started somewhere. At some point, somebody had to have had a legitimate experience, and what that legitimate experience was, they could have been fucking high. I don't know, but the point is, somebody saw something first, and that's the only thing about it all that I find even remotely compelling.
I agree with you. Here's the last thing I saw, and we'll move on and then we'll wrap up because this is like the longest podcast we've ever done.
Awesome.
But
I doubt that, but okay.
no, it's not far off. No, we've done longer than this. For DFOS though, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
Anyway, who fucking cares? Everybody knows how long it is. They can see the timestamp.
We're reviewing a whole show. Okay, it's only 6 episodes.
No, I'm having a great time. I'm in no rush to end. I'm just like I just want to keep things in perspective here.
It's an entire show, even if it's only 6 episodes. I didn't realize how long Bill was going to go off just on Bigfoot alone. That could have been a separate podcast. Jesus. The point.
No, I agree. No, but we also didn't get to Bigfoot for a while too. We talked a lot of shit at the beginning.
Yeah, we spent
Listen,
a lot of time just like fucking licking Joe Rogan's nuts. So
which is fine and something I'm perfectly willing to do. So I don't give a fuck. But what I was gonna say was I think where I came in with the whole not believing the possibility thing is that I have never seen any evidence, ever seen any video, never heard an account where I went, oh, there's definitely something going on. I've always been like, oh, maybe, but never like, this has convinced me. The credibility of this story is so immense. It's grabbed me in such a way where I'm like, holy fuck, there's aliens out there. Happened to me with Bigfoot. Bigfoot grabbed me in such a way where I was like, oh my god, there's giant hairy men out there, which I think is exactly what Joe Rogan says in his episode on Bigfoot. But with aliens, it never happened with me. There was never a story where I was like, oh, there's nothing else that can explain that. There's always a million other explanations, and that's the problem with the UFO phenomenon.
No, I would be interested to know, and maybe this is something you don't want to get into at this point because this might eat up more time.
Uh-huh.
But I would be interested. I would be interested to know, like, what was the first thing that got you into the whole Bigfoot thing? Were you like a skeptical fucking like 6-year-old kid, and then you saw the Patterson footage, and you
I
were
don't
like,
even know if I ever knew. I don't know if I knew what Bigfoot was really. I don't think I knew it as a presence, as a real thing that people thought was real.
Uh-huh.
But oh, Dylan, that's a good question. I can remember the first book I read. It was like a I can't remember the title. It was called Bigfoot. And it was about like
I remember
the
first
cover.
book I read. I don't remember what it was, but
I remember what it was. I just don't remember what it was called. It was a black cover with a green drawing of Bigfoot on it, and it was like vaguely the Patterson stance. But and one of the first pictures was of a guy casting out a line. It wasn't a picture; it was a drawing. It was a guy casting out a line, and a Bigfoot was in the water, and it grabbed the line and took the fish right off the line, which is something that apparently happens in some sightings. And can you imagine it? Like you're on a boat, you're fishing, you feel a tug, and just a fucking Bigfoot rises out of the depths with your fish.
yeah, man. Every day I go through that, man.
Every day I consider that possibility.
Every day I'm boating, and I'm like, man, a Bigfoot could just pop out of this water right now. It happened that one time. It could happen again.
But you know what, Dylan? Let me think on it. Let's consider it for another day. We can do a whole podcast on Bigfoot and get into that. But because I would like to think about it and try and remember exactly what it was. But it was that book. I just don't remember what the documentary I saw was, what the thing that grabbed me and made me go, holy shit. But I do remember a book being involved.
Yeah.
And I remember...
I mean, you really jumped to the Patterson footage's defense, so I kind of thought, was that like the thing for him? Was that the thing that like...
Well, I mean, it was part of it. Well, Dylan, you just gotta remember, that's the big Bigfoot evidence. That's like, that is the quintessential evidence for Bigfoot's existence.
It is the biggest foot, for lack of a better...
It truly is, though. No, there is actually like a largest Bigfoot footprint. It's like it's pretty big. So
yeah.
I could find that out for you for that episode we're gonna do as well. Anyway, the Patterson footage was not specifically what was it though. That was just one of the things that I saw that made me go, holy shit, I'm gonna see that in my nightmares. Because my parents actually tried to get me to get out of Bigfoot for a while because it was legitimately freaking me out. Like the idea of it, so I had to kind of back away from it for a while, but we'll get into it some other time. It's certainly an interesting thing to get into. But anyway, so let's talk about the last episode though. We didn't even talk about the psychic one really at all.
Yeah, okay. So
we made some snide comments about it, but we didn't really talk about it.
This is the one that Joe Rogan is clearly the most skeptical about. It's the one that I'm the most skeptical about. It's the one that Bill's the most skeptical about. The most convincing guy in the entire episode is a guy who straight up tells you from the beginning, no, this is bullshit. This is all just...
The mentalist, yeah.
This is all just smoke and mirrors. Like the guy who straight up from the beginning tells you, oh, everything I do is actually an illusion, and I'm just really good at what I do, and I make it it seem like I actually have powers, but it's all fake. That guy has the best demonstration of psychic powers in the entire episode. The guy at the beginning of the episode who's like, I'm gonna create a DC battery charge in my mind that's gonna repel you forward and backwards
No, that guy was awesome though. He was
when I reverse the
hilarious.
polarity. Yeah, he was hilarious, but he was fucking bullshit.
No. I love the moment in the end though, in the end credits where where Joe's like, I feel pretty stupid right now. I feel stupid, and that's about it. And he's like, well, you look pretty stupid. I laughed.
I like when he's like, when I was a kid, I used to play with this in church. I used to get like 10, 12 people to fart really loud.
See, I don't believe him, but I like him. Like he's great. Like I like what Joe Rogan says. He's like I'd have a beer with him, but
I
I
remember
don't
what it
believe
was like being a child born in church in the South. If I had had psychic powers, I totally would have made people fart. Are you kidding?
him. I want to make people do way worse things because I had problems with church when I was sitting in church.
That
So
was the most believable thing he said, honestly, because I would do that if I was a kid in that situation.
I would have like fucking I don't know. I would have like would have made the fucking clergyman like drown himself in the fucking Baptist water. No, I'm
All
kidding.
right, all right.
But
Well, somebody was touched.
I would have committed murder. No, I'm not.
I an angel. No,
I'm an angel. No, I'm not Carrie. Uh, so not anymore. So
Where did the angel touch you, Billy?
I don't know. Uh,
Right there.
the brain probably.
Oh,
That's how I got my powers.
true that, true that.
Uh, and
I
anyway,
don't think that's what they mean when they say touched in the head, but okay.
Dylan, this is such bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. It's exactly the same thing as the aliens and Nessie. It's all vague fluff that exists in people's heads. There's no tactile experience you can have. It's all metaphysical in your own head. It's like, well, you gotta believe, man. It's like I don't want to believe. Fuck you. I don't want to believe in people getting in my head and manipulating my feelings. I'm my own man. I'll do what I want. I'll say what I want. You know? do I sound defensive, Dylan?
No.
but
Did you ever consider, Bill, that maybe the psychics are just half
the side
breed?
the sidekicks? I don't
No,
know. I
the
never.
psychics. Maybe they're
Uh,
just like half breed people who like the aliens come down, right? And they have psychic powers because they're aliens and they got big heads and then they fuck human women.
that's the only fucking qualifier for them being psychic is they have big heads.
Yeah, that's standard. I'm a fucking psychic, but
Exactly. Most people are psychics because a lot of people have big
also
heads.
George Lopez, really psychic.
Will Smith, all in the ears.
Human beings as a species, heads so big we can't even like that's the reason people are born like not able to walk unlike other
Yep.
animals. If we
Well, that's why people are born with underdeveloped skulls because that way we can be born.
Yeah, because if women actually carried us to the point where we could walk like our other animals do, we would kill them being born.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
would kill them to the point where they wouldn't even be able to finish giving birth, and then we would die as well. It would not be very good for the species.
Well, it's also why we're different from other animals because our brains have to develop after we're born. Like that's weird in the animal kingdom.
Yeah,
Like that's very
most
strange.
animals they
And
just develop in the womb. And to be fair, all their brains need to know how to do is walk and eat. So I mean,
exactly, ours does so much shit. Ours is responsible for so much garbage that. I love how I'm describing the human condition right now.
it's
It's
just
such
garbage, man.
garbage.
Just all this shit.
It's bullshit.
Oh God,
It's crap. I hate it.
reminds me of that Louis C.K. stand-up special where he's talking about how sick he is of just like the perverted thoughts. He's
Yeah.
like, women want to play it up like, well, we're dirty. You don't know. It's like, no, you don't know.
You don't understand. I love the part where he talks about going to the library.
He's like, yeah, can you give me like a book on Abraham Lincoln? When he was like, I want to take your hair and like wrap it around my dick. He's like, I'm trying to
It's
talk to
so.
a lady.
It's so accurate
He's
though.
like, I
Though
just
it's
want to be a
crazy.
person in a store. Uh,
I'm totally. I hear that though. It's crazy.
uh,
Um.
anyway,
Anyway. So psychics are bullshit, Dylan.
yeah.
Which one pissed you off the most? Because it wasn't the guy with the accent for me.
No, because he is pretty entertaining.
Who was after that?
Um,
There was somebody who pissed me off.
was it the remote viewing people?
No, because
That was actually sort of interesting,
that
honestly.
was very
That
interesting.
was
Because
the
the
one. That
government.
was the one thing about the episode that I actually did kind of like is when they were talking about the remote viewing and shit. Because it is interesting.
Because some of it worked. There was physical evidence for that maybe being possible.
Yeah, assuming that
I mean, obviously, I don't think it's true, but
assuming that
there's certainly some validity to it.
assuming that what that guy told us actually happened, that's some pretty interesting shit right there.
Well, my whole thing is like I question him not because of what he says. I question him because the government is letting him get on public television and talk about this. Like, don't you think they would be more scared of people being pissed off that we knew where Osama bin Laden was and we didn't do anything about it?
Yeah, that's the other thing. This guy would never live if he held that information.
No, like that's why I don't
The
believe
Men
it.
in
Like that,
Black would have already erased his memory, and then he would be reading books as if he had never read
you know,
them before.
you know what, Dylan? For an episode about something that kind of inherently pisses me off because I don't believe in it, and because people I know believe in it, and like it pisses me off to see them give into the bullshit, and I'm just like,
Oh God,
please
I know
stop.
what you mean. I know what you mean.
You're right. It's just like, oh, listen, do what you want, have fun, but don't try and get me into it, and don't get mad at me when I don't buy into it because it's a bunch of shit. It's people stealing your money. It's crap.
I don't even
And
mind so much like the fortune teller thing. Like that's
no, that's a fun
that's
thing.
per,
That's for
that
entertainment.
that's pretty fun. Yeah, it's when
Yeah.
you get into like the ones that piss me off are the fucking mediums. Mediums are garbage. They're terrible people.
Are you talking about people who communicate with people's dead relatives? That's the
Yes.
shit that I don't like. That's crap. I hate it. I've had family members do it, and I always am like, that's horrible. Like, if I ever met those people, like, I'd be like, you're a terrible
Well,
person.
that's why South
Because
Park awarded John Edwards, who, if you don't remember, he was like the biggest medium on television at the time when they did this episode.
I remember him,
They
yeah.
did this episode where he goes to space and he gets awarded the biggest douche in the universe award. And like
Yeah, because he's a
there's a song and everything where this alien is like, "Here he is, the biggest douche in the universe."
Well, I mean, Dylan, let's talk about because the mentalist guy, who again I love. I'm with you. He's great, and one of the things he brings up is like, well, people get comfort from it. People use it as a spiritual experience to help themselves get through the day. And it's like I feel bad because we're crapping on something that people use like
No,
that,
but
but they shouldn't be using it though.
what he says though, if you listen to the full quote, he says some people would say, "Oh, but it brings them comfort," and he's like, and he mentions how, but it's like false comfort and it's no good.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I mean. Is like, people are like, oh, you're taking away something that people like, and it makes them feel good. It's like, but better things can make them feel good. Give them legit comfort, like,
Yeah.
you
Like, man,
you
why
know,
do you need comfort from a fake ass medium who's not really talking to your family, but is using something called
exactly.
cold reading? Which read into cold reading if you don't know what that is, because
It's fascinating.
it takes a lot of talent to be a douche of that caliber.
No, it definitely does. These people are talented. They're just
I gotta
assholes.
give them credit for that. They're very talented at being the biggest douche in the universe.
It's for because you know who they are. They're Sherlock Holmes because they do what Sherlock Holmes does,
Yeah,
kind of.
it's all about just reading people, honestly, and anybody can learn to do it. It just takes a lot of dedication, really, and it's insane that
I would love to be able to
it's
do that.
insane that people go through so much trouble to be the biggest assholes they can
Well,
possibly
but they
be.
make a lot of money off of it,
Yeah, I
though.
get it. I get it.
They make a lot of money off of it. Like again, I've seen my family
If I
members
had any natural aptitude for it, I don't know. I'll do anything for cash. Anyway,
won't we all? Like this podcast. No,
yeah,
I
because we've
wish.
made so
Oh
much.
God, I
God, we've
wish.
made so much money off of this shit.
Can you imagine if we made money off this show? Number one, who's paying us to make this
I don't
crap?
know, man. If we could make,
Who's paying us to question Joe Rogan?
if we made money off of this show, it would be great. Just because it's a fun show to do, and it takes
Yeah,
almost no work on my part.
especially on your part. Like, I mean, it's very little work on my part, but
Yeah.
it's zero work on your. You have to show up.
The most work we ever do for this show is occasionally we actually review something like this week, and it's like, oh, I gotta
Yeah,
watch.
we had to do work this week. We had to do some research and watch
But
this
in this
stuff.
case,
Yeah,
but the most it ever is
we had to watch it. We had to watch a TV show.
yeah.
Like that's not a lot of work.
That's the thing we had to do. It was like, oh, I gotta watch a thing. Like that's
Watch a good quality thing that's like the best of its genre. Like, oh no,
just shoot me now.
please kill me. Yeah. Um,
Anyway, I don't know. Because Joe Rogan didn't actually talk to any mediums in this episode, so I don't know who the person who pissed you.
Probably because he probably would have opened up and fucking kicked their
Yeah,
ass because they're horrible people.
yeah. But so I don't know who it would have been that actually pissed you off in this episode. I can't think of anybody that like innately pissed me off in that episode.
I know I don't remember what I was thinking of. It might have just been um the mix of like just the ignorance of the whole medium, not mediums, but of just the whole field itself and what was discussed. I think it was more what was discussed and what people believe and what people do that kind of coalesced into that. From I can't because I can't think of
Now
it.
the guy at the beginning who did the experiment on Rogan, where like they were measuring his photons and shit. That was interesting just because of those spikes that happened, but he never did anything to connect that to psychicness.
Well, it was also interesting because Joe wasn't there, and it felt for a moment like you were watching a different show.
All he did was prove that somebody through concentrating can boost the amount of light that their body is giving off. Okay, but how does that prove psychic ability in any? I don't see the connection there. You know, um,
Oh, you know who I thought was a bit off in that episode. And I agreed with her though, which was interesting. The woman at the end, the blonde woman who talks about machines reading your mind, because that's where it all goes. It goes from psychics to
yeah, it was weird.
the ability to read the mind with machines.
I guess just because of the ability to read the mind, he went sort of back to the episode 3 thing. Again, he's very biased on that topic, but he went back.
Yeah, no, definitely, and that was kind of what bugged me. Like, I think maybe her. It's weird though. She wasn't the one believing in the psychic shit, but like she was the one who strangely pissed me off in the most way. Partially because I kind of got the sense that like Joe was. He kind of seemed like he was being treating her a little different. You know, like he was behaving a bit differently in his interview than he was with the rest of the people. Like he was still cracking wise and everything, but it was less so. He was a little less aggressive about it. I don't know. It seemed a
Maybe
little different. I'm not gonna say it was because she was a woman, but that I don't know. There was something going on there that
I didn't get that I didn't get that impression while I was watching it. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because of his agenda. Maybe he wanted to fuck her. I don't know.
I'm not even saying he the fucker. I'm just saying like just I don't know what happened, but I got a different vibe from that interview than I did from anything else. Not that it's a big deal. I still believed and agreed with a lot of what was said, but I just thought that her mentality was a bit strange. I don't know. She seemed a bit off to me. It was just like the spaciousness of the way she spoke, and she sounded herself like she was a bit unsure of what she was saying. I don't know. It was a bit off to me.
Mm,
Maybe I have to watch it again. You've also got to remember the conditions I watched it, and I watched it on my phone at work, so
yeah,
maybe it was
it's
me.
true. It's true.
But I got a weird vibe from that interview, and I liked her. I didn't like her as much because she, you know what it was? She came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
She's in this episode where they're talking about this very specific niche like paranormal subculture, and then all of a sudden
it
we're
felt
into
like
the Terminator,
they
and we're
threw
into like
in.
the scientist who was creating and trying to prevent the Terminator at the same
It
time.
felt like the whole reason that they had this awkward segue back into technology going too far. It almost felt like it was just like the psychic shit didn't take up enough time, and they needed to pad out some runtime. Honestly.
I agree, but do you agree that the linear narrative there made sense? Like I'm glad they went to that place. I'm
Yeah,
glad the stuff I learned in
I
that
understood the
section.
segue. I don't know. I thought maybe it was a bit jarring. I don't know.
I agree. No, I'm with you. I'm definitely with you. That's why I think it bugged me like it did. And again, I'm making it out to seem like more of an issue than it is. Like I feel like a lot of the stuff we brought up has been nitpicks. Like all the issues we've brought up and
Yeah.
everything.
Well, I mean, we spent so much time at the beginning sucking his dick that we kind of had to.
Yeah, I would hope that if like he listens to this, like yeah, because he's gonna
Yeah,
listen
because
to this.
Joe Rogan is gonna.
Yeah, he's gonna take 2.5 hours out of his day of chicken farming. Now he doesn't farm chickens, but he has chickens, or at least he did in the podcast I listened to.
That's interesting. I never pegged him as a chicken farming kind of guy.
Well, no, he doesn't farm them. He has them to have his own eggs.
Oh, all right. Because you said he's only gonna eat animals that he kills himself.
Yeah, so he collects his own eggs
It's
and
a
everything, and
weird. It's a
they're
weird mentality. I would never want to go through all the trouble of killing my own food.
well, I mean, you get it though, right? Like it's the whole like if you have a moral issue with the way food is collected now,
I don't.
like food for like 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 the way like cattle and chickens are tortured and shit, like then yeah, that's what
I
the
mean,
mindset comes.
I don't know, man. They're just gonna wind up on my plate anyway. Fuck.
No, well, that's your mindset, and then there you go. You're comfortable with it. He's not, so that's where it came from.
Mm.
Um, so anyway, it's just to get back to the discussion
Like
though.
the only way I think you
Um,
can solve that problem is to stop eating bacon, and I'm not about that.
no, exactly. No, that's the thing. That I could never give up bacon, and bacon is like fucking pigs and cows are. They're not. They don't live good lives. So it's like I've reconciled that in my head.
Yeah, I mean,
My life is good though. and that's what's
What would
important.
they do if they lived? You know,
I don't, what are they doing with their lives? I mean, Dylan, what are you doing with your
they're
life? Though is the
pigs. They're
question.
pigs and cows. You know, what would they have? And here's the other thing: if we stopped farming, like if the whole entire world went vegetarian right now and we stopped farming, it would be terrible for those animals because we've domesticated them to the point where they wouldn't.
Oh no, that's the problem now. What do cows do in the natural world?
Yeah,
Nothing.
we've domesticated them to such a degree, and we've also overbred them to such a degree that it would just fuck with them.
They couldn't exist in the wild. But you know what though? They'd be food for something else though, so they would actually serve a purpose.
Yeah, but I mean, why would we want them to be food for something else when they can be food for?
I agree, but I'm just saying they would serve a purpose. Anyway, so we're really far in. We're off the beaten path now. So, is there anything else you wanted to say about the psychic stuff or anything in general? Because I feel like we've covered a lot of ground
No,
already.
I think we've talked in as much detail about that as I think it deserves.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We talked about the psychics and how mediums are the biggest douches in the universe. We've discussed our,
Talked about the weird blonde lady at the end who talked about
yeah,
being scared.
we uh we debunked veganism and we talked about our pickup, you know, and
We did indeed.
our
So yeah,
pickup.
no,
I love the phrasing there, our pickup.
we own one together, like we co-own a pickup truck. I'll be about that, Dylan. Do you want to buy a pickup truck with me?
Like we have a community pickup truck between the two of us.
Yeah, we fly it back and forth and drive it around. We each get a week out of it
It would be a terrible setup though because we live in different states.
because of no. But I said we'd fly it back and forth. Imagine
Terrible.
the air cost of flying a pickup truck across the
This
country.
would only be possible if we were like in a sitcom scenario when we were like sharing an apartment.
Yeah, yeah, I know it'd be fine. I mean, that would make sense. Like, I'd be about doing that. Sharing a car would be fine, but sharing a car across states is a very different. It's a different
Right,
proposition.
right, right.
Anyway,
Also, the other thing you got to worry about when in a pickup is running into aliens because apparently
apparently that's a common thing. Apparently, you get a pickup truck and you're just that's like a gifting stone to an alien. Like that's their
that's
gifting
their
stone.
gifting stump. They moved. Look, they moved my pickup
A little bit, yeah.
a
Um,
little bit. Yeah, that's all they moved. It was a little bit.
just a smidge.
See how this one
Dylan,
ball is turned a slightly different direction? That's proof of a Sasquatch right there.
it's and nothing else could do that with that level of dexterity. It's like not anything could have done
I
that
love how
with
Joe
that
Rogan's
level of
like Joe
dexterity.
Rogan's like a squirrel could have bumped it. Like
Yeah, exactly. It's like why did it have to be Sasquatch? Um,
he's not the only thing
all
in
right.
here.
The only thing here, yeah, they ate everything else, including the cows, and the pickup trucks. We lost several pickup trucks to Sasquatches.
Bastards.
Uh, Anyway, so Dylan, why don't we wrap this thing up then? Why don't we wrap up with closing thoughts on Joe Rogan Questions Everything?
Oh,
Dylan, thank you for showing me this show, man. Like, it's the best paranormal show I think I've ever seen, and I haven't seen all of them to be fair, but just it's quite well
that's
made and
interesting because I know you've seen a lot of them, way more than I
I
have,
have.
and I've seen a lot myself. But you've seen
Yeah, yeah.
tons of them, so it's interesting that this is like the best one you've ever seen. I would.
Well, just because not only is it the most entertaining, but it's the most compelling. Like it's from a skeptic's point of view, but it's from a skeptic's point of view who's open-minded, somebody who likes this shit,
Yeah,
and it's well made. It's fun. It shows compelling evidence. It's made in a very viable scientific, mind with a viable scientific mindset. I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
eh,
pretty
are
airtight.
there issues of bias in certain areas? Sure, but I mean, the man's human. That's
I think that comes in though with this is a stand-up comedian running a paranormal show. I think that's inherent. I think you have to be okay with stuff like that.
I
Now,
think it's inevitable, honestly.
that being said, I don't know if you can make a good version of a show like this. Like it's so much up to interpretation and the very idea of myths and legends and the paranormal comes from its its interpretation by others and its impact on humanity in terms of its impacts on our culture and the way we think. So it's impossible to talk about this stuff without any level of bias. But I think there was a little bit too much of that at certain points in this with the being terrified of machines thing.
Yeah,
So, but I
and I
think
mean,
so. I
I've never
agree
I've
that
never met Joe Rogan. I don't hang out with him or whatever.
I don't
Uh,
know if he's actually scared of machines, but
yeah, it's just I got that's just the way it came across to me. Is it seemed like he had
I
a
agree.
bias against the whole machine thing. I don't know, and not even like a huge bias, just like I don't know. It just felt like he was skeeved out by the whole idea, and it sort of colored his thinking. I feel like from the moment he went and visited Bina 48, for the rest of the episode, he was like, I don't know, I'm not liking this. Like,
Well, he was skeeved out a lot when he was talking to her,
yeah,
and I was just like, that's a little mean.
don't be,
She's a person, sort of.
don't be racist against robots, man. She wants to be the first robot to enroll in college, man. Bina 48 for president, man.
Equality for Bina, man. Justice for Bina. Anyway,
Bina 2016, free Bina.
free Bina. That's what I have to say.
I don't
Uh,
know what I'm
but
freeing her from.
freeing her from her being a head mounted on a shoulder, on a set of shoulders,
Yeah,
and that's it. That's her entire
yeah. Hey,
existence.
androgynous scientist lady, give her a body, man.
Yeah, I thought, Dylan. I'll be honest. I thought that scientist was a dude until like the very
You know,
end.
like I really hope she's not like. I really hope we don't get shit because it turns out she was like a transgender woman or something.
Well,
Um,
I don't know. Well, I thought she was a. She talked like a man. I thought Joe Rogan said him.
no, but he said her name and it was a woman's name, but then she started talking and I thought, oh, is this a dude after all? Then they kept referring to Bina as a partner, and I was like, that. I guess
Yeah, that's why I thought maybe she was a lesbian woman
that's when I
because they
realized
used the
that
word partner.
is a
Yeah.
woman. Like, I don't know. I haven't been that confused since Frieza. Um,
Me neither, bro. Me neither. Um. So Dylan, what really attracted you to this show? And like what makes you love it so much? Like, because for me, it's this is the cream of the crop
I
of this kind of
mean,
thing. I'm obsessed with this shit. So seeing this be the cream of the crop of that, just it does my heart good.
I found it so randomly. I was watching some Joe Rogan shit on YouTube, just like some stand-up specials and some excerpts from some of his podcasts and shit. Because sometimes I just watch like stand-up comedians, just
No, I do that too. Fair enough. Yeah.
um, even if it's a bit that I've seen a million times before, I'll still sit there and watch it. And I just found episodes of this show on YouTube. I just clicked on one and I watched it. And it was the first one, luckily, and I was like, shit, like this is a good show. Like I need to watch the rest of it. And then I found out there were only 6 episodes, and that made me sad. I was kind of hoping that it was an ongoing thing that I was like discovering, and that like I could start watching it week to week or something. But no, it's like one.
That's exactly what I felt when I finished. I was like, please tell me there's more of this. And then I remembered, oh, you said it was only six
Yeah,
episodes.
and it
Fuck.
was made, and it's not like it's the sort of thing like, oh, maybe we'll get a season two. This was made 3 years ago. It doesn't look like there's gonna be
Nah.
a season two at this point.
Not like Netflix picks it up and they're like, we're bringing it back.
I mean,
Joe Rogan questions everything on
if they did
Netflix.
that, I would be so happy. I don't think enough people know about it though. I feel like we're
I don't
bringing
know.
awareness to this show, man. People go watch it, man. I reckon.
See, I also don't think sci-fi would let it go though. I feel like they would hang on to like the. I don't know if they might not
As
be
soon
able to
as
though because
as soon as Netflix showed interest in it, Sci-Fi might be like, no, we're fucking keeping it.
that's what I'm saying is that but I wouldn't want that though because I don't know. I mean they made the I don't want that because like I assume Netflix is gonna be better, but they made like sci-fi made the good quality version that I saw.
Yeah,
So
true, true.
maybe it should stay there. Fuck Netflix.
People judge sci-fi by their movies, but I mean,
And by their dumb title.
some of their programming is pretty solid.
No, their TV is actually pretty good.
You
A
ever
lot of their
watch?
paranormal shows are pretty good. Like Destination Truth is a sci-fi show. That's one of the best fucking paranormal shows on
Watch
the
that
air.
reality show they have, Face Off? I only
Face Off is great, yeah.
watched a few seasons back in the day, and I mean, that was good shit. I sort of
Have you ever seen Destination Truth?
uh, I've seen some episodes. Yes.
What's your take on that show?
I thought it was good.
Well,
I don't really remember it well enough to give like good thoughts, but
no, I hear
I
you.
enjoyed what I saw.
Well, just because Josh Gates as well, sense of humor, good, charming, good
I,
natured, skeptic.
I feel like you need that shit to do a show like this.
I think
I think
so.
these shows have been put in the hands of the wrong people for entirely too long.
I agree.
You don't need
Dylan,
you don't,
we should run a show like
a
this.
true believer does not need to run a UFO show. A skeptic needs to run a UFO show.
I agree because that's what's compelling and interesting. Or you know what? Even to somebody who's like, I want this to be true. I'd like to prove it, but doesn't
Yeah.
say anything without proof.
And
Like that's what you need. You need a
what's
scientist.
interesting about this show is that Rogan's opinions on these matters differ from episode to episode. You know, they're with like Bigfoot and aliens. He's like, that's sort of like really sexy. I hope that's true.
That's metal. Yeah, it's fucking metal.
And then there's other episodes where he's like, oh, I fucking hope that's not true. And then there's episodes where like he's dumbfounded by what he finds. When he's doing the episode about like the pandemics or whatever, and like he starts having these people like giving him like statistics of like how fucked the human race would be. Like it almost, I find it hard to believe that it was the first time he was hearing that information because that seems like it's pretty well known at this point. But it seemed pretty legit in the episode. It seemed like he had never heard some of this shit before, and he was like frightened and taken aback, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, his reaction shots are great. Like his fucking look of fear is instantly like relatable and funny.
Any
Like every time I saw it, I always smiled.
anytime Joe Rogan is dumbfounded, it's
Yeah, I love that face he makes. Just that like, what?
yeah.
What did this fucker just say to
And
me?
then like they cut to like his like to the camera bits, and he's like, "What the fuck?" Like,
Yeah, I love that. And I think he's a great personality. He's a great person to follow. He's very easy to follow.
yeah,
He's incredibly well spoken.
yeah.
I think he's an. I mean, he's a little potentially biased, as we said, but everybody's got their biases. Everybody's got the things that makes them scared. Everybody's got their
Oh
beliefs.
yeah,
So it's understandable, but leave that out of your skeptic-driven show. You know what I
that's not a
mean?
knock against anybody. You know, nothing but respect for Joe Rogan. I think it's inevitable, even if you try to be as objective as you possibly can, that some of
Absolutely.
your biases are going to leak in. Scientists like to pretend that they can be as completely objective as humanly possible, but not really. Let's be fair.
And I do think that there are points in the show where he's kind of okay with the fact that he's pushing the limits of objectivity just to be entertaining and for his own
Yeah,
sake. And
that's definitely a part of it. I mean, you got to remember that
so
at the end of the day, this show is
it's a TV show. It's an entertainment. It's not a cold, hard scientific case study.
right. At the end of the day, it's the mentalist, man. It's smoke and mirrors. It's meant for entertainment, and maybe you see some interesting, profound shit in there as well. Like
Exactly. And you know
I
what?
love the part where he demonstrated how he did that like triangle circle thing, where it was just like gestures with his hands that like caused the audience to have a certain reaction. Um,
And here's the reality. They're never going to prove that these things are real on these shows. Never going to
when
happen.
these
And
things
I'll
are
tell you,
proven real, you know where it'll be? On the fucking news, like all information.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And when Bigfoot was thought to have been proven to be a real animal at one point, it was on the news. It was 2008. Do you remember? They thought they found a body. It was all over the news, and then
Yeah,
it turned out to be a hoax.
yeah. It'll be all over the news if they ever discover any of this shit to be true. It'll be like right between a story about a McDonald's closing and some bitch suing Walmart over a toilet or something. Like it'll be
Exactly.
wedged in between two really shitty stories, and they won't give it enough time. It'll
I mean, it'll be a shit story. Like, oh, Bigfoot turns out to be real. Your campfire stories are true, kids. It's like, no, please shut up and die. I hate the news. By the way, that's another thing about me that you may not know. Biased against the news. I hate it.
it'll be like tonight, Bigfoot is discovered in America. But first, fashion tips from
Yeah, it's like, oh, how to get Chris Jenner's or whatever her name is lips. It's like, I don't want those. I want Bigfoot. I want Bigfoot's lips.
oh oh.
Don't judge me, Dylan.
Uh,
You're judging me. I can tell.
you want big? In what way?
In every way. Anyway,
did I make a mistake by showing you Yeti a gay love story?
yeah, you made
did I stir feelings deep within you that you didn't know you had?
Dylan, you saved my life by showing me Yeti a gay love story.
Because of the profound experience that revealed to yourself that you are a Sasquatch.
A Sasquatch? All right, let's wrap this up because I don't think any of us can handle this anymore. So, Dylan, I loved this show. Thank you for exposing it to
Oh
me.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I just found it out of the middle of nowhere, and I was like, Bill would like this. And then I also got to thinking about it, and I was like, this would make an interesting topic for the show, just because it's it's a science topic and an entertainment topic all rolled into one. It's actually several science topics and an entertainment topic all rolled into one. So
This show
it's almost like we had a science week.
this show to me is like a good like quality version of the Demons from Outer Space of what I'd like it to be. Because don't you just wish every week we could go out and do weird shit and come back and
Yeah,
podcast
like
about
imagine
it?
if we had a budget.
The resources, yeah.
Well, first of all, we would have to not live in separate states.
Well, that's the
That
thing.
really limits
Wait,
us.
see, Dylan, but that's the thing. If we solve that problem, like we could instantly do more shit on this show.
Yeah,
Like I could be like, Dylan, do you want to go like parasailing? And we could go do that
yeah,
and then do a podcast about it.
yeah.
So like instantly that would solve a lot of the
The
problems
show
that
would
they
just
don't
become
have
a
with
mixture. The
children's.
show would just become a mixture of Joe Rogan questions everything and impractical jokers. Like that would be, and that's a
Oh yeah, definitely. You and I would go out and fuck with people and film it and then talk about it on the podcast, and then we get arrested for fucking, something. I don't
Like, isn't that a great pitch? Like, oh yeah, sometimes they talk about like strange science and like paranormal shit, and other times they just fuck with people.
know. That's kind of what we do though, because the fucking with people would be the entertainment topics. Like that's like I imagine we would go out and like I don't know, like try and convince people that fictitious shit is real. Like we'd be like, oh, Goku's attacking the city or whatever. I don't know. I don't know why Goku's the one doing the attacking,
Fucking
but
Black Goku, man, Black Goku.
Black Goku is attacking the city, and everybody will believe us because we used the word black. No.
Right, right, right. And they can't question that. That'd be racist.
Exactly. That's why we didn't question it last week. Um, we don't want to because we don't want to
They'd
be
be like, I
perceived as
don't think that's a real
racist.
thing, and you'd be like, oh, you don't think there could be a Black Goku? Why don't you think there could be a Black Goku? Are you
Yeah, exactly.
you
Why can't
racist against
Goku
the
be
idea of
black?
Black Goku?
Fucking unequal for Black Goku piece of shit. All right. Anyway,
Free Bana, man, free
so
Bana.
exactly. So all right, Dylan. In terms of stuff we have to announce, we're recording the next episode of the Godzilla Odyssey retrospective next week, so that'll go up soon after that.
Yes, we are.
Indeed. We recorded the reduxed version of Through the Shot Glass, the new first episode of the newly restructured version of that show that we talked about on this show and on other podcasts as well that we pitched exactly what the new structure is going to be. We won't get into it here because you can see it when it's up. I'm putting those up. I'm going to start putting them up right after the next season of SOS and DFOS ends, just because that's a lot of editing, and I'd like to put some time and effort into that. So I'll put those up once this season is over, and once I just have some free scheduling for putting stuff up.
By that time, I'll
So
have several other episodes recorded.
ex- exactly. So I can put them up in bulk kind. I can just put up a whole bunch to block out where there would
Right.
be a season
The only ones
or
that you
where
have
the
to make sure go up at
podcasts.
any specific time are the ones that like we've planned as like holiday specials.
Well, yeah, definitely, and the Ghostbusters one I'm gonna try and put up as quickly as possible. But that ends that'll happen right as the season ends, so that'll be pretty close anyway.
Yeah.
So
We've only got let's see, after tonight we've only got like 4 episodes left of this season of the Demons from Outer Space
yeah,
People.
nah, it's more than that because we only have 4 SOSs left, so we have like 6 of this left.
Really?
Let me
Oh,
look
were
at
we
my
were
schedule.
we counting SOSs last time? Hold on, let me.
We did. There's definitely only 4 SOSs
One,
left.
two,
Hang on.
3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, we do have like 5 or 6 of these. It would be 5, wouldn't it? Because
Uh,
we won't record the week we're at G Fest.
you're right.
Okay, so we've only got 5 episodes left of DFOS. We've got some great topics.
Oh, I was counting this one. My bad.
Oh yeah, don't do that. We
Cool, because I still had it listed on this list I had because we hadn't done this episode
right,
yet.
right, right. So yeah, we've only got what did I say, 5 episodes left this season. We got some great topics planned, so stay tuned. Also,
And we have a great topic planned for next week.
we do.
One that's been long in the making, yeah.
Long awaited. Have you made any headway on it?
Not a lot, but I have, yes.
You poor bastard.
Well, I have to dig in. There's like 50 episodes, aren't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to dig in. It'll be an experience.
I mean,
Uh,
if you need if you get to like Wednesday and you can't finish it in time, and we need to like switch the order of some of the topics, we can do that. I mean, uh,
oh yeah, that would be totally fine. I mean, maybe we should put this one until later in the season. Well, we'll see
think
what
we should
happens.
shoot for next week. I'm just saying, if we have to reschedule it, we could always just
Yeah, but do you want to tantalize the people with at least a hint of what might be to come if I finish watching all those episodes by then?
tantalize them. I'm just gonna fucking tell them, Bill. Just,
All right, fine. Just just
just
just take it
I'm just
out and
gonna
show it to them.
whip it. I'm
Just
just gonna
just
whip it out and
just just
just
pull up in your pickup and show it to them.
gonna put all the cards on the table. The plan is for Bill to finally finish a little show that we all like to call
It's a small show.
a little show that we all like to call Kyoryu Sentai Time Ranger. No, I fucked that.
No,
Kyoryu Sentai Jew Ranger.
fucked it up.
Why do we like to call it Kyoryu Sentai Jew Ranger? Because that's what it's called. You fucking idiot.
Because that is the official name.
Fucking idiot. Uh,
Goddamn idiot! You pickup driving idiot.
so so yeah, he's gonna finish Jew Ranger, and we're gonna talk about it. I'm gonna present my top 10 list that I never got to finish over on my channel, and I'm at least gonna rewatch those specific episodes for the video, but I'm not gonna rewatch all 50 episodes because I love myself too much for that.
I have too much confidence and self-esteem and desire to live to do that.
I mean, I would gladly watch Jew Ranger again. Don't get me wrong. Not in a fucking week.
No, that binging it that hard will be my cross to bear. I mean, I'm through the first disc.
Good.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
10.
8. Yeah, I got 9 more discs to get through. I mean, there's only 6 episodes on each disc, so
We watched an episode together, so that you watched that one.
I did. So I made some headway. I have to rewatch the pilot though too, so I have to go back too.
God.
Is the thing.
So yeah, I'm
I'm
gonna finish
I'm
Jew
just watching the
Ranger. We're
first.
gonna talk about it. I'm finally gonna present the entirety of my top 10 list. It'll be fun.
Yeah, next week will probably be as long as this one, so be prepared for some longer DFOSs if you're cool.
Yeah. And then we got some other great topics coming out later on, leading up to G Fest, and then we'll have G Fest, and then we'll be off season for a while. But we'll still do the occasional video here and there. Just won't have a
we will.
podcast logo on it.
We indeed it'll be stuff that I have to put more work into because I won't have like pre-rendered shit ready to go.
Yeah, there'll be no templates and shit.
Exactly. So look out for all that coming up soon. We're very excited about it, and it should be a good time, especially some of these DFOS topics we have. I'm very excited to get to some other stuff.
We teased some of them in previous episodes, so.
We have indeed. We announced one of the things that we're doing. I think the week after. No. The week after next, we're doing another. We're doing our last science week, and then we're doing only entertainment topics until the end of the.
Because
until
we
the
have
end of
too
the
many
season.
damn things that we want to review in between now and then.
Yeah, we do.
Where all these ideas were at the beginning of the season, I don't fucking know. See, what happens is we spend like months just talking about nothing but bullshit, and then at the end of the season, we're like, oh, we have all this shit we want to talk about, and we got to cram it in.
I mean, there's never been there's never been a week where we've been like we have nothing to talk about. Like that has never happened since we brought the
No,
show
because
back.
at the very least, you're like, hey, dolphin died. I'm like, cool.
Well, I always have science articles. It's just a matter of whether I get the time to bring them up. So next week, it'll not next week, the week after next, it'll just be everything I have in my Facebook feed. You're getting it. I'm sorry. I'm unloading all of it. I've saved them up. I want to talk about them.
Yeah, man, he's getting blue balls from hanging on to these science topics. He just wants
I am. I want to show them to you. No,
he just wants to shoot that load, man. Just
I'm waiting. Anyway, so look out for all that in the future, and maybe you can use your fucking what's that called? What's it in the psychic episode called where it's like they can look across the world?
remote viewing.
Remote viewing. That's it. We're gonna remote view to the distant future to see what DFOS topics there will be. Even though I already know because I can remote view it on my iPhone. Until next time, everyone. I'm Bill Worster, aka Zazubaar.
I'm Super DM64. Everybody go watch Joe Rogan Questions Everything.
Definitely. And get the fuck in your pickup truck and get the fuck out of here. Because them Germans, they be fucked up. Good night, everyone.